Check out this shot of Venus. Man, it's looking really nice tonight. What's going on somebody somewhere? Happy New Year. What's up, Kimmy? How are you? What's going on, Bumba Clat? All right, 6:48. I got a really good shot of Venus to share with y'all tonight. Luckily, I got the alignment set up early, so it's pretty steady. And this is some really low light settings, so we can see the detail on it. Check out the fringing. So we got another like 30 minutes with Venus, so I'm gonna stay on it. Moon is high up. Got a good shot of that as well. And Orion coming up in the tail. I also pinged Neil from the Electric View. I think he's going to join and chat with me about the electric universe and the shape of sound and some other thoughts. So waiting for him to hit me up next 30 or so. Yo, Ellie Wynn, how's it going? Chow Yun Cat, and what up, Scott Wagner? Evening. Alright, so I just wanted to show the brightness between Venus and the stars next to it. It's kind of setting, but it's still a little bit higher than, you know, that typical kind of graininess. So you can see some really nice spikes, diffraction spikes coming off of Venus. This is without any, like, filter. So incredibly bright compared to the star next to it. Yeah, so just ping Neil. Let's see if he shows up, and put some more jams here. I want to continue talking about the geometry that I was doing yesterday on the moon. The moon's almost at first quarter tonight, and so we'll see lots of hexagons. I got some links to share all about how we see sound tonight. Look at that, like right now, like there's nothing in the way of, let me see, is there something in the way? Let me check. Actually, yeah, so there's like a telephone line right below Venus. I feel like it's creating that diffraction spike in the middle. The two black kind of triangles to the left and to the right. Yeah, it's setting. Let's see if that actually affects it a bit more. Hell yeah, Ellie Wynn. What's going on, Ben? All right, I'll shut up. Let the song play for a bit. So I added the 3x Celestron Barlow lens. I really feel like I need to articulate on this mic in the back room. Just it feels like if I speak quickly, it sounds like I'm just slurring. So yeah, added the 3x Barlow, and this is a really good shot, I gotta say, of Venus. Let me see if I can't adjust the filters a little so we can see the shape of it better, but there you go. I'm gonna kill the saturation on it. And this is what you would see with like an Astro Cam. Obviously it would be a lot less shaky, but still, 3x, and it's centered. I hear some beeping. nothing yet. What's going on, chat room? Just want to see. I feel like a whole bunch of people showed up. Let's see what's going on. So, vivacious Venusian vibes and Kimmy, you want to say something? Go ahead. BW Blue Sky, hello. Session of the Nile, what's going on? Kimmy, what's happening? 2020 or Zozo? Zozo. Well, the reason it looks like the Photoshop thing is because basically across the light spectrum, blue refracts to one side and red goes the other way. And in the middle you have that kind of basically what we consider white light. And because Venus is so bright and essentially glowing, given that it was likely a comet recently, or still is to some degree, it constantly diffracts and refracts light in this way. There are almost no shots of Venus where it's not doing this. So Venus itself is not blue and red, it's pure white, at least as far as we see it. But it's so bright that it affects the diffraction. At least that's how I understand it. It is Discord. I feel like that's the way I'm gonna get Neil on in a second, but right now I think, yeah. I left him a note. Wait, did I lose it? Come back. There we go. Mac and cheese, yum. Already starting with the snacks and the cheese talk. We're not even at the moon. Let's get some tunes on, get the vibe going. I'll check on Neil. Test.
Nope. I was listening to your the bridge between light and space, although I want to, well, not you. I want to grab this guy and shake him.
All right.
No, I just mean he's not. He's fine with his. He's reading, and you can tell he's reading. It hurt.
Yeah, no, I know. Some of those videos were something I just saw for the first time. Let's check in the chat room.
Actually, sure. I never heard it either. So.
Yeah, I was just researching the topic today, really. Even though I've looked up sonoluminescence a long time ago, like really, that was one of the first things, 2015. Yeah, so chat room, what's going on? I got Neil from the Electric View, and let us know if the levels are good. You can hear a little bit of background music, and you can hear me, and you can hear Neil. Give us that thumbs up, and we're just gonna chat, and y'all throw us some questions, and it's really free form. I just thought about it today. I was like, I invited everybody to come join. So, yeah.
I had no idea I was on the air. I was just shooting the crap with you.
That's what I was trying to. Yeah, I don't know if you're seeing the screen right now, but I got Venus.
No, yeah. I'm going there now.
That's why I went live, because Venus is rare to get this clear and this close. So I went live.
Big fan of Bananarama.
This is Neil, Kimmy, from the Electric View. Also, everybody go and get Neil, cross the 3K finish line. I'll put a link.
Yeah, I'm
Actually,
almost
say
in.
hello, and I'll make you an admin.
Oh, yes.
For
Let
this
me
show.
find your live thing.
Here, I got you.
I'm here. I got it.
Yeah?
I'm hearing myself, so you're watching Venus now, so that has to be it. I'm going to say hi.
Kimmy says, sounds real good. Awesome. What's up, Jim Jones? Cool.
Word.
Sweet. Electric View. Yeah. Moderator. Given the wrench out. Nice. It's rare. Very rare. What's up, Mistaken Mystery? Yeah, so this shot is like, if you're seeing the screen, Neil, is
I am.
Venus with the 8-inch telescope, Sony Alpha 6500, so in 4K, with a 3x Celestron Barlow. And my tracking is actually pretty decent, otherwise it would be like flying off screen right now instead of just bouncing a little bit. But that's
good tracking. So
yeah, so that's yeah. Throw us some thoughts about Venus close up.
It's actually one of my favorite planets, only because of how wrong we got it. I mean, it was a prediction. Like, Arthur C. Clarke died in the 90s, and he wrote a book in the 50s talking about the Heechee and all the living things that lived on Venus.
Right.
Underneath the clouds. That was science fiction, but they thought there were trees under there. They thought everything. They thought it was a paradise. Just right up until we got there. It only took 25 years before we realized it was uninhabitable.
Yeah, I mean, also Velikovsky, just to make note.
I wasn't even throwing into that yet, but yes.
Yeah, but even without any type of stuff, he was just really predicting it blind. I mean, given writings, you know, he
said it was
had
young.
A small telescope. I don't think he even used the large telescopes, but he was just having conjecture about the fact.
Well, he didn't have to use anything.
He was right on the money, pretty much, and especially with the composition and the surface features.
Well, and that's, of course, if anyone ever seen a few close-ups of Venus, you understand what you're looking at. It's hard to imagine that even though the air looks clear, there's no way to see through the clouds. The sunlight could never get through those clouds, but it's lit from all angles because there's pervasive lightning just going through the sky, and the atmosphere is 50 times thicker than ours, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 50 atmospheres. I'm not sure. Something.
I mean, right now, I mean, I was going through some of my old footage of Mars, and I took footage, taking footage over 5 years, and I did it through the dust storm and through Mars opposition. And Mars, typically from the backyard or from homebrew astronomy looks, fuzzy, like a fuzzy red ball. And Venus now looks like a fuzzy white ball. But there are certain times when...
Where's the sun in this picture?
The sun
is
to the bottom right. It's basically align it with the red and blue.
Good. I was hoping. I was hoping there was a reason why that was there. Yep.
Let me see if I can't quickly sketch the polarity here. And while we're talking about it.
I like that it's also kind of bluish. I mean, we do know from others that it gives off more energy than it takes in, like many other planets.
Yeah, so what's happening is that Venus is basically so bright, it's incandescent, right? And so...
or was at least.
I mean, right now it is. This is why it's blue and red. I mean, although Jupiter and the moon and planets and stars all get this diffraction pattern, which is very strong blue to white to red, to yellow to red. These are the power, the lumen power. And then, so Venus typically has this all the time. As far as I've ever seen Venus, it always has this very strong diffraction pattern, much more prominent than, say, Jupiter or Saturn or the moon. But of course, if you look at the moon and Jupiter and Saturn at the horizon or at rise, in the west or east, they will have this exact pattern or this color gradient. But Venus, to me, it seems like it's basically glowing. To reference back to Mars, Mars basically, even though it's 50 million miles away, and Venus is, I think, much closer, actually. Let me just check that. Oh, okay. I guess Venus is about the same distance, about 67 million miles, and Mars is about 55 million miles. But you don't see any detail, essentially, is what I was trying to say, on Venus ever. I've never seen like any like lines, even though its surface features are supposed to have volcanoes and rifts and canyons and such. Neil, you still there? I feel like I lost you.
You didn't lose me, no.
Oh, no, good. Let me say what's up to everybody in the chat. What's up, Mark Rowe, and let's see, Christine Burton and Electric Crystals, and let's see, Genghis Khan.
You definitely do that much better than me.
It's become almost like process.
Second nature.
If I don't do it, then it's nagging me. I'll only not do it if I'm working with the scope. So there's like a priority in my head of like scope comes first, then chat room, then everything else.
Gotcha. But no, this is a wonderful thing about Venus. If you look at the pictures of it, you can see that it's covered in rocks, just like Mars.
Right.
And unlike Mars, though, there seems to be no hits. It always had a very thick atmosphere. If you don't, there's no craters really. There's a few of those really weird, blistering sort of astroblem-like things, and of course, it has a large lightning strike around its middle, like all the way around.
Yeah, keep going. Gonna get a picture up. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, those are you see that when we sent down the vehicles to go. Well, the Russians did, I think.
Yep.
I'm not even sure what they were called.
Soviet Venera probes.
Venera
probes. 81.
Had a B.
Yeah.
But they were incredibly tough machines, and they only lasted 15 minutes. They had diamond lenses, and they were thrown into Venus, and Venus has an atmosphere, like I said, that could crush a submarine, like no problem. And then once they fell through all of that, you would also have this lens that had to look through that, and so they use diamonds, of course, and they shaped these diamond lenses to look out through that thing, and it only lasted 15 minutes before it overheated, but it was hot enough to melt lead, 900 degrees Fahrenheit there.
Yeah, there's a picture pulled up, like yellowish green, kind of sulfuric atmosphere.
Yep. Oh, well, and of course they had no sensors for that, no idea what was really what, like we didn't, like today we would send down atmospheric sensors and stuff like that. But you can see it's like pounded pavement. It's just.
Yeah, I'm grabbing one more image here. I mean, it's.
And like, there's notice there's no shadows, like except they're underneath the rocks. The light's coming from all around. It's very weird.
Here's a more intense looking picture, but this reminds me of the carving on Mars that we see, the kind of Valles Marineris and other features on Mars that look like, like essentially like a lightning dendritic ridge cutting through. So here I pulled up another, this is NSS-DCA photo gallery for Venus. And I think it's just processed, but that's like actually a real image with stars in the background.
I'm waiting for it to pop up.
Yeah, sorry, I do have a delay.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. There it is. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. One of those craters like that. But look at those weird rills or whatever is coming out of them. And of course, they need to see through the clouds to see this structure. So we don't have any colorization or anything. It's probably just infrared or something.
I think so. All right, so I'm losing the view of Venus here. I think I'm going to switch it up and go to the moon. That's an easier target. Now I'm just like occupied.
You're getting close to the horizon, are you?
Yeah, pretty much. And the 3x is just going to start losing light because the more magnification you add, the more light you need to see the detail. So let me quickly switch this up, and feel free to chat with the people to hit people in the chat room up, Neil. Everybody, this is Neil from the Electric View. Say hi, Neil, and please get Neil across the 3K finish line tonight. Go and sub or give this is the crew that I hang out with on Sundays, and we chat about all sorts of things, Electric Universe related and such. Let's see. So what's
it's hard to deny when you're looking at those pictures.
Right?
Wonderful.
And we'll see the moon too. We'll talk about that. What's up, Keeps Digging 7 and Chris Kelly? How you doing, mate? Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah. Plain Truth. What's happening?
I met him in Bath.
That's awesome. I really need to get my ass out of the hometown and get out to one of these conferences someday. All right. I'm gonna take a tiny little break, but just so I can switch up the lens.
No problem.
And I'll put a tiny bit of music. But Neil, if somebody's chatting, feel free to talk. And yeah.
Oh, thank you, Kimmy. Wonderful. Mine wasn't bad. Well, I don't want to complain. No, it's just it's I'm dealing with insurance companies. That's all. It's like they're like, oh, but you'll need to jump through this hoop, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't even jump, guys. Let alone through a hoop. My Neil's channel is the same as what I'm posting as, the Electric View. This is me. All right, I can also make a link for it. Just kind of. Awesome. All right, let's go like that.
Yo, what's going on, Carolina Sky Astronomy? How you doing, bud?
There you go. You can right click to open that. Don't leave his channel. Go look at that thing.
All good. Cool. So this is camera direct to telescope.
Love the accent, Neil. Do you hear that? I have an accent.
I know. I guess you do. I actually think you have a voice.
I do.
A tiny accent, but I think you have that kind of that recognizable voice. The it factor.
That makes me feel good. But it maybe it has to do with the whole, well, it's not Shakespeare. I guess it would be Shatner-esque pause. I do. I don't know. You have to also identify it with people. You have to sort of relate, have some interesting way of breaking up your dialogue without being, what's that? Christopher Walken. He does that stuff and apparently his reasoning was very simple. He just had parents that were immigrants and English was a second language. So they paused to think about what word they'd like to say.
I actually kind of dig that. I feel like doing this show, I've learned how to articulate way better, and it makes a difference to one's own thoughts, because you have to slow down. Therefore, you can think about deeper things and several things at once. And then 2, when people listen to you, they can take it in a little bit better. as
Yeah,
opposed
we're
to
not
trying to.
friends to ourselves when we're on our own show. We're like so hyper because all the information's coming so fast, and we're trying not to wag our tail, but we're like, oh my god.
I feel like I'm so much more calm on my show than the Electric View, where it's just hype. Everybody wants to hop in the ring.
I know you
It's
feel,
like,
and
get in the arena.
I feel that too. I'm like, gotta breathe, guys. But you know what? The show has changed as people have come and gone, and I've never had to be any more than hinting to the people. So, transatlantic. That's, I think, the word you're looking for, Christine
Okay,
Burt.
right.
Transatlantic. There's like Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn used to talk like there's it was sort of not made, but on the radio so that people who were from the old land when they came over and people who were new could still understand each other. And they had that accent. It was like a broadcaster's accent. And we still have it as our news. Our news has that accent. It's just like it doesn't matter who you are. You sound like, hi, my name is Ian Hennemensing. Welcome to blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, there is that. I've also noticed a creep of cynicism in broadcasting as well. This kind of very, especially with local news networks, when talking about important things, it's this kind of elbowing your friend about how it's cool not to be smart, or it's cool to make fun of smart things, or it's cool to just scoff.
Anti-intellectualism,
Yeah,
the strain of intellectualism, as Isaac Asimov might say.
oddly though, it's by people who consider themselves intellectual.
That wouldn't surprise me. We are an arrogant bunch of dinks sometimes. I don't even know if I consider myself intellectual because of that reason. So I like to think, but at the same time, am I insulting it by not calling myself that? Is that what's going on? I'm confused.
Well, keep going. I'm gonna pull up an image, and then because it takes a second, and then I want to show you I don't know if you saw the last couple of nights' show. Doesn't matter. Point is, we're looking at the moon right now. It's close to 50% illuminated. It's about let me just double check this. 48.1% and 7.2 days old. So still waxing crescent for a couple more percent. And got at the bottom right corner at the 4 o'clock, you got Mare Crisium. And then to the left of that, Sea of Tranquility, Sea of Serenity above that, Mare Fecunditatis, Sea of Fertility at the bottom with Langrenus crater, the white-ish crater that's very large at the bottom. And then to the left of that, Mare Nectaris with a trio of awesome electrical scars, Theophilus, Cyrillus, and Katharina. And at the very far left, you got Tycho crater starting to come into view right under the Terminator. At the very top, if it would just move. I love it. I do this to share with people, sometimes it seems very like stroking my own ego when I rattle off names of lunar features, but I think it's one of those very interesting things that, you tend to know the Earth and your city and your neighborhood so well, but we know nothing about space. And being able to, name actual regions and recognize the moon has become a really interesting pride point for me personally. So.
Oh, well, you should be proud. I mean, there's nothing wrong with. I was embarrassed when I couldn't figure out. Like, I thought that I knew where all the countries of Europe was. I was recently tested on that, and I was like, I was happy I got 50% right. But I was always like really close to the area, but I was like one country off.
Right.
But still, I mean, we are I guess you could say a global culture now in many ways. But I don't want to see the corporate culture that's on top of that actually there's a way to bring all of the cultures together, and I find that to be a much more share share our love of things as opposed to disagree. There's something to that. I'm not sure.
No, I totally agree. I'm going to pull up this image of the butterfly as the first one. I'm going to show the relationship between the geometry. It is about sound, but it's also about, the intrinsic geometry that I've talked about, that Buddy talks about, and a lot of people have actually talked about in the New Age movement, in quantum, in actual cosmology and cosmogony, but it's never really put together and baked, and then also eaten and adapted. So that I feel like we're in the state of science where people have a lot of knowledge, but what they actually focus on when it comes to the knowledge seems to me personally inane, especially looking at some of these smarter everyday videos. So they're talking and doing amazing stuff in these videos, but what you take away from them is pretty much nothing. It's these anecdotal references to experiments versus actual results. So when you listen to somebody like Halton Arp present his data, and you listen to something like Smarter Every Day or PBS or Mythbusters, they give you nothing except cynicism and judgment. And Halton Arp gives you actual data, And I know that's hard. It's not fair to really compare Halton Arp to some lame media trope, but in a way, that's the current state of science. If you listen to Neil deGrasse or Joe, and the way they talk about it is very like, this is what the speed is. This is how we think it is. It's never, this is data, and this is where how the data can be applied. So the quick note,
we have that joke here called allegedly, and we say it a lot. Like we go allegedly. Well, it's not really as big like in Canada. That's actually something you can always tell where the story was written, because it will say the alleged perpetrator or something. It won't say criminal. It won't, because anything that prejudges something should not be there. It should always be, like as fair as possible. But that feeling where they're stating things without an actual interest in investigating why that is. It's like, just investigate the surface, don't go underneath, don't dig. I find that to be, that's just like telling people to believe in God or something. I mean, it doesn't matter if you do or not, that's irrelevant. You can't just declare. I mean, there are certain things where you can, but if you're, especially when it comes to formulae or whatever, but some people, Neil deGrasse is bad for that. Bill Nye, not so much. Bill doesn't, maybe because Bill has more time, I'm not sure. Like if you're listening to him for an hour, he'll go through the reasoning behind his reasons. And you can see where some issues, you can take certain issues with certain things. Like, I'm not sure if that's valid. Let me investigate that part. I find that to be sad in some ways, but some people don't have the actual basis to debate that question. I mean, why would you debate it if you think it's true? Why the speed of light is just the speed of light, right?
Well,
but it's not.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so this Smarter Everyday thing, I was looking up sonoluminescence, and I typed in bullet wake, so you could see the repercussions of the effect of a
ballistic wake.
Ballistic wake. And I'm just going to get that link together. But what's so fascinating about it is the way they talk about it is just to show this guy shooting. They never say, okay, the wake is this shape because there's this other shape that correlates to it, and this is why it's relevant. They show all the math around how to measure the shape, right? So you can measure wake or Mach speed, for example, by using a very particular wave equation. But what are people really who are watching on YouTube going to take away from that? They're like, it's fast. That's pretty fast. That's all you can really take away from that. Versus, no, the shape of the wake is this incredible fractal geometry.
Oh yes, it's beautiful.
It's astounding.
Same with the wake of the planets, like in your very thing, the magnetic wake, I guess we call it, with of the Earth and so forth.
Yeah, let me grab this link. Specifically, copy and paste. So, like, I don't agree with everything they say in this video, but you can't deny that the science experiment is very cool. Let me hit up the chat room for a second. What's up, Renegade? How you doing? And Bill Nye is a patsy. 85 Renegade says 85% of celebrity scientists make up statistics on the spot. 67% of the time, 71% of the time, people believe them. Some scientists say.
Some scientists say it's true. A lot of cosmology is religious regurgitation, and the thing is, though, is that a lot of the basic stuff that I like about Bill Nye, I think we can all appreciate, was the simple stuff where you actually weren't afraid to go and try to do it, is what I meant. Whereas someone who is trained in just the theory does an experiment, and I think it's important. Like I shouldn't say we, but I guess as someone who has taken technical electrical engineering and actually built prototypes, learning how the process works and how the fields interact with each other and what you can do with them is infinitely more than just hearing it regurgitated and then regurgitating it again to some other people on a TV set.
I think what's actually kind of gotten me down about it is that it's less about even the science. It's more about, you gotta believe us. You guys are total idiots. You gotta believe us. Like, now you're all conspiracy tards. You gotta believe. It's a lot of like, you gotta believe us, and it's exhausting. There's so little science in these videos. It's more about conjecture and attitude and bullying and I'm right, they're wrong. And just to kind of, pump up my own ego. But no, for real. Like, what I'm trying to do here, people could take it or leave it, but I think that showing the moon for real is a big deal. Like, or planets or stars for real, and then having ideas and discussing the topics while people are looking at the actual object I don't see it. It's almost, even like the Cassini briefing, for example, with Carolyn Porco, you watch it and there are more pictures from like Star Trek and Star Wars than actual pictures or like a live feed of Saturn. Like, why wouldn't she have access to like a live feed of Saturn?
Like, I'm the kind of idiot who should do that, not you. I'm the one who should compare it to Star Trek, because I'm like third or fourth down the list. Like I'm a copy of a copy of a copy, if you know what I mean. Not someone who's actually gone and provided the data and got it there. Present the data. Don't present a story with your data. I don't need your story,
Well, I think there's, to not be so cynical about it, because I'm usually very cynical, but it's, there's a time and a place, right? Like, if you're literally the head engineer on the Cassini-Huygens mission, Carolyn Porco specifically, and you're a woman and like in charge of the entire program for 10 years, why is your last presentation like when they sent the craft crashing into Saturn? They literally had this whole nostalgic story about it, versus there's an 11-minute clip on YouTube with all the footage from Cassini. That's the astounding stuff. Why not have that pulled up the whole time and have scientists debate what's going on? The video of her doing the recap of the Cassini-Huygens thing is eerie. It's like Twilight Zone replaced the scientist with a kindergarten teacher, a kindergarten class. It's like one of those weird Rod Serling type stories.
Wow, that's taking it back.
I'm gonna find actually that thing, because I know I talk about shit, but like you'll watch her talk about the Cassini-Huygens mission. You'll see like how little science is really going on, and I'm like, this is a $600 million Saturnian mission that was successful, and I don't even know what to take away from this thing except you took photos. Like, They say they learned all these things, but I'm like, what did you learn?
But they didn't tell it. Well, that's of course the issue right there. Because when they go, this is leading us to questions about the universe, but we don't want to tell you those questions because we don't want you to question. Just believe us, we're okay. I'm not really cool with that either. I find that to be that's belittling to people. Granted, there's a bunch of fucking idiots out here. Like, I mean, seriously, there's a lot who can't even figure out. Like, I mean, there are people who look up and when there's a power outage and call the police because they see stars. So, I'm not even, But that said, there are a lot of normal people out there who still can't use a telephone, who can't use a cell phone or smartphone anyway, and can understand what you're saying because they understand what frequencies light and the universe are, and they can follow you. So cater to them. Don't cater to the lowest common denominator. We can translate it for those people, but it's become a marketing thing where you have to appeal to a larger person, like as if the person who runs NASA should be worried about public relations. Public relations in NASA should not be what you're presenting. It should be something like, okay, the space shuttle blew up. How do we cope with that? Like that's what I mean by public relations for them. Like it shouldn't be something as trivial as this. I mean, just do the real science. Tell us the real thing.
Well, that's why it kind of bugs me. I've eased up on expecting NASA to do certain things because like they do have a public relations program that says this is our mission and it's for the people. It seems like it's not necessarily for all of us, because a lot of people do want to go to the moon, and it's high time that the mission was kicked into gear, but it's likely going to be canceled and pushed another 10 years, and generations will get older and lose interest, and just like people forget certain administrations and how bad they were, they're going to forget that they canceled the last 4 moon missions. Not everybody, a lot of people do remember it, but it's very strange that we can't do it. That we're looking at this moon with all this high-level technology and these cell phones and all the surveillance and drones and shit, and somehow man is not on the moon right now, and that's insane to me.
Yeah,
especially
I'm
growing
sure
up in the 80s.
I was 2 years old when the last guys came back from the moon.
Hey, Peace Keeps Digging. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, so I was looking at the Artemis. Actually, let me quickly reference something. So I dropped in a link. That's the link to Carolyn Porco, Porco, head of the Cassini-Huygens mission, doing a debrief on Saturn and the future
Perfect.
of missions. And you can see what I'm talking about. It definitely is filled with information, but it's very hard to understand what to take away from this massive project. Yeah, and maybe I don't get it, but yeah, it doesn't inspire me. It makes me feel like, wow, those are some awesome pictures. But I would think that if you were at
half the
Saturn,
time, the pictures that we find that are most compelling, the most interesting ones, are never shown to anyone. Same with the papers.
Right.
I'm a little ticked off at that, to be perfectly frank. There are so we just watched from what's his name there, Gareth, See the Pattern. Watching See the Pattern, you see those 10 very interesting photographs that last little while.
Oh, I was just going to do that. I'll pull up one of them and I'll show you where I find the correlations. Go ahead.
Good. I'll stop worrying about it until you do.
All right, so here's the Cat's Eye Nebula pulled up on the left. And I'm going to draw... Actually, you can see it right next to it. So on the moon, we're looking directly at Sea of Serenity and Sea of Tranquility. And also to the right is Sea of Crises, Mare Crisium. And what I believe is that this structure right here, that's the hexagonal structure. And we're basically seeing a cross-section and echo as well. So it's not a pure form, but essentially this form, the hyperboloid, Z-pinch, shells is the same as Sea of Serenity and Sea of Tranquility, with the Birkeland filament gone through it like that, Birkeland filament gone through it like that, twisting Birkeland filament. This is a very simplistic rendering, obviously, but this is how I see things connected. So pretty much all the images that Gareth was pulling up that seem strange are just strange because, oh, I don't know. I think it's because we've grown up with that type of language.
I just see an hourglass shape connecting itself. Very lovely like.
Yep. And so to the right of that, Sea of Serenity, Sea of Tranquility, and then I'll show you the same thing with, so down here, you got a hexagon out of Mare Crisium, Proclus, Z-pinch, a hexagonal kind of formation coming off of Sea of Tranquility. And it's almost like a star destroyer, right? Or whatever. I don't know the terminology. Or like a satellite, or hips, or molecules. I think it's the same reason this structure exists throughout. So at every level, every bit and every cosmic structure is built on the same geometry, and they pack.
Just like twisting a balloon animals, kind of like that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, in a way, because you sort of like have a tube which is filled with air in this particular case, and twist it, and then you twist, of course, a galaxy or a star. I mean, we know the twisting's occurring. We have the solar wind going around in the ballerina skirt-like way, and that twist continues. Now, there's no physical structure to break, but when these things do break, we get prominences. Well, we call it breaking, but it's not really breaking, of course, because there's no breaking of lines. But we see the shorts that are caused and the sparks of this type of event on our very little star.
I'm listening.
Oh, I'm just, just what I'm thinking about.
Well, I'm showing the superimposition of the apple. And I think the apple is one of those very basic ways to show these geometries. You have the core, you have a healthy apple cut in half with the seeds, and the seeds, you have emanations coming off it like dendritic structures. You have the stalk of the apple.
You've pretty much described every fruit when you think about it.
Yes, true. It's like the ubiquitous fruit, right?
Well, it's like a toroid, really,
Well, yeah, the structure is exactly what we see on the moon. And then if you look at an apple top down, you're looking at like a Fibonacci spiral and the two conical structures stacked like Buddy Dougherty, the Dougherty set that Buddy shows, basically looking top down at an hourglass.
Next time we ever have this debate and I have to describe what it was like to be stuck onto Saturn and why we didn't fly up into the South Pole, I'm going to use fruit. This is a good idea because we could put an apple and then just put we'll go, that's the magnetic field of Saturn. And then we'll go, okay, now us, Earth, we're just this little grape in the bottom. But we're actually the pit of the grape in the middle. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I made an observation yesterday that I thought was kind of profound, which was, or I've made it before, but to me it seems profound. I've just never heard it. But the fact is that an apple holds a seed, not for another apple, but for the tree. I think that's really interesting. Like the fact that, so an apple seed creates another tree. It doesn't create another apple. The information held inside the seed of an apple when you cut it off a tree and you eat it, it retains all the information of a full tree. I think that's really fascinating in terms of
the
data.
Fruits and sugars are just so that the animals will take it away and plant it somewhere.
But the instructions basically of how an apple
how to make a tree,
how to make an apple tree look like an apple, not just a tree, because an apple tree, of course, is a tree with tree rules, but it also
specifically
looks like an apple variant. Well, it's a tree, but it has apple leaves. It creates apples instead of grapes, let's say. And I think that rule set being held inside a tiny seed, just one seed, instead of the apple having a seed that would clone the apple, it clones the whole goddamn structure of the universe. So in us, why wouldn't we have the entire universe within us as a seed? It's pretty interesting like that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying one of the things that I was fascinated about when I was on my tour of the United States. I was in Sacramento in a place called Antelope, and Larry, who I won't use his last name, but he's been in a lot of tours, geology tours. He doesn't necessarily want to be famous or anything, but he just loves going on them. And so he's taken me across the country to go to Utah and other places like that. But in his yard, he has some amazing tree. Like, he grows all his own food, and so he has hybrid trees that he's made himself, and they're like, he goes, oh yeah, this branch here will produce oranges, this one over here will produce lemons, and this one over here will produce these things, and different branches on the same tree. And of course, this is the hybridization effect kicking in, and how it manages to keep things separate. Sort of like that recent event where the gentleman had his bone marrow transplanted because he had leukemia. He now has the sperm of his donor and not his own. So, because blood makes sperm, I guess. I don't know exactly sure how that works.
But doesn't that change over time? Like, I feel like human bodies recycle matter, right? Like, we're not ever the same, ever, almost.
Well, we have, I guess the longest is 25 years for a cell of bone to be replaced.
Right.
I'm not sure if brains get replaced. Like, I think they just die, and we grow new ones. They don't replace themselves.
But the cells,
I'm not sure, though.
I think that, like, the cells in the brain probably are alive. You know, they're radiant discharge of electricity, so they're constantly morphing.
They're actually those same hourglass shapes that you were just looking at.
For sure.
Except to get across the boundary layer of the dendrite to the next one, we need a chemical reaction to do that. Which, of course, is why beta blockers and other things like that do their job.
So quick note here. One, let's say what's up to the chat room. See if there's a lot of comments in here. But yeah, all the fruit and veggies. Okay, let me know if I missed you. Thanks for hanging out. Got Neil from the Electric View, in case you didn't know, and talking about the shape of the universe, shape of sound, shape of craters, and the intrinsic geometry, or at least that's what I'm talking about. And
I don't disinterest that. I think that's a good thing.
Awesome.
Patterns, I mean, there's no sense ignoring them.
Well, for me, it feels like high time that we understand why things look the way they do versus saying that they do. So part of that conjecture I was mentioning earlier is reiterating the obvious. If you listen to things on PBS or in popular science, they tend to just tell us things we've heard. And I think people who've heard, well, the speed of light is this, and nothing can travel faster than that. And I was like,
who said that?
You know, but things like that.
No, I mean,
oh yeah,
that argument.
Your sarcasm.
Nothing go faster than that. Yeah, they said that about like 60 miles an hour. They thought your skin would fall off. They thought the same thing was going to happen when you hit the sound barrier. And Chuck Yeager was like, I did it with a broken rib. It was no big deal. And then, you know, I'm not sure exactly what we're afraid of. The only thing that seems to be is holding us back is our interpretation of relativity in many cases.
Well, it is that. I think it's also, you know, like I was saying about, I think it's quite difficult to articulate what I was saying earlier about how you can watch a very intelligent seeming video, and get nothing from it to move forward. I watch tutorials a lot for all sorts of different things, for cameras, for astronomy, for design, for sound engineering. And if you look at videos like that, some of them are bullshit, but a lot of them, right afterwards, you can do something new. If you pay attention, you can do something you've never done before. And some of them, you can do a lot of things that you've never done before. You could do one good music engineering session with somebody and go from like a complete noob in Logic or Pro Tools to like knowing what you're doing roughly, or having a sense of what you're doing.
Yes.
In one session. And I see hundreds of these science videos, and I can't get anything out of them except the fact that I've heard it 100 times. Like, okay, things are fast, things are big, I can't comprehend it, we can never know. Okay. Or mankind's a cancer on Earth.
That's not it.
Rich people want to do things. Yeah.
That's also very much sucks. Like all of that. I find that they don't want to bring us along anymore. It's always, as you said, we're basically turning from ourselves and turning to, like back in the day, we're turning back to the nobles and going, but Lord, could you not take us in your rocket? Oh yes, King Elon will do that for us. You know, like, what the hell, guys? Of course they're smart. True. 100%. The only thing that I think that's good about Elon is that he's waking people up to, or we can have a discussion about the continuing discussion, I guess, since Terminator till now, is AI bad? You know, like, and so it's nice to see that he's put a weird, actually even more sinisterly dark, twisted, cultish AI idea behind it. And I'm like, ooh, that's creepy, freaky. You know, that's even worse than I was thinking, because you think we relinquish ourselves to celebrities. Imagine when we're trying to relinquish ourselves to the all-seeing, all-knowing great computer. You know, like...
I actually was listening to Eugene, the philosopher, talk about AI. I don't know if you listened to that, the one about AI, but he makes some really cogent points about how it's all within our consciousness, roughly, which is a point that I've always sort of made, where like it can't exist really without us. He doesn't say that, but that's how I see it. Like, there is no thing without no thing. You know, there's no existence without the observer. And so I feel like artificial intelligence is intelligence. And he makes some points about like how, like, I thought one was very good, which was negotiating with cancer. You know, the first thing you do is try and cut out and murder cancer. But what if you treated it nicely and said, hey, like, help me out?
It's actually a
brilliant
we're having recently. Like, no, literally, the Canadian friggin' whatever, we just had a great big discussion about we can't just attacking cancer with this kill 'em all type of attitude, because we have to think about how it forms and all this stuff so that we can sort of make it something that we can healthily deal with, as opposed to, well, as you
murdering
said,
half the body to deal with a small piece.
Well, I'm happy it worked in my mother's case, but there's other cases when it does not work, and you're not helping yourself. You know what I mean, obviously. Cool.
Got the wide shot here. What's going on, Polly B?
Aloha.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Elon and pop scientists.
You know, I can see it, yeah.
So quickly, the reason I kind of rag on these cats all the time, like, I'm not against capitalism, and I'm also not against people who want to be celebrities, right? So, like, I can't hate on them for that.
People think I'm communist, and I'm sitting here praising Elon, so there you go. I can't win no matter where I go. Like, it's like, you're a libertarian asshole. You're a communist. Okay, I'm lost here. Which one am I, guys?
You know, that kind of conversation, though, I feel like it never ends up in, yeah, I'm a socialist, so what? Nobody ever seems to have the conviction to actually have beliefs. Everyone's always just waiting to be judged, and then when they're judged, they accept that they're judged, versus saying, hey, okay, what's so wrong with socialism? Explain to me in detail. And ultimately, people who are so mad at the possibility of socialism will have no actual information.
I could exchange the good and the bad things about it. And there are good and bad things about it. But most notably, I think the biggest thing with regards to anything, and I think this is the biggest issue, is taking responsibility for what we have done and what you have done. Like, corporations are really good. They have public relations campaigns to make sure they don't get blamed. But you have to point your finger back and say, look, this river was not polluted till you guys were here. Okay, we have to fix that. And we can't just keep passing it down, passing the buck. That's the sucky part. And I think that sense of responsibility is just mature, if you know what I mean. Like, we shouldn't just ignore that. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to change our entire way of being because of it, or we don't have to change our entire economy because of it.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because it's sort of what I know you didn't release the show, but the one last time we chatted and you hopped in and Buddy and I got
that wasn't a show. That was just us shooting the crap. But yeah,
it would be good to get out, because just that, I thought it got good. But anyway, Buddy and I got into a heated discussion about, like, whether Kanye is relevant or Taylor Swift, or whether I personally should
basically the show was not about something like that. That's all. But we can discuss it. Feel for free.
No, I just feel like I have like such a, no, it just gets to this thing where I feel like even in fringe groups and in circles, I tend to have a completely different opinion about this. Like, I tend to be a hater of people who, not a hater, but like in fringe circles, people tend to like not Neil deGrasse, but they like Joe Rogan, and they like people like Graham Hancock.
I like Joe Rogan. I like Graham Hancock.
Yeah, but I actually can't. Okay, let me rephrase it. So I've decided that spending time listening to people like that means I can't spend time doing other things. Does that make sense?
Well, he's a stepping stone that should lead you up past him. Is what I mean. That's what he was for me. If it wasn't for him in mid-90s, I might not be here now to have fallen into and discovered what I discovered. And that was a long, twisting road to arrive here. Went through Expanding Earth and a bunch of other things. But I'm here now in 2000-something, 2003, 2004. Now, does that, I guess in that way, I have him to thank. Joe Rogan, I was like, well, you introduced a few things to the narrative. So in that case, I thank you. But in many cases, your critiques are right on the money.
Right. I'm listening.
Okay. Well, your critiques are when you were saying, well, they have to think about what they're saying. They never bring up, they must know about the electric universe. They must know about this. It goes, well, sometimes they do, but right at this particular point, a lot of people are just storytellers. Like Joe Rogan's just a storyteller. And he does not have a responsibility to do that. Just like
you're right.
Stephen Colbert doesn't have that responsibility. He's a comedian.
But I feel like also people lost a little bit, because I used to love Colbert. I was like, oh, this is a brilliant comedian who's actually about to speak truth to power, so on and so forth.
Oh, you mean when when he was the Republican Colbert, that one?
Yeah, like the faux Republican, when I still thought politics had some sort of
I think that
relevance.
Was really good. He's basically imitating, what's his name now? Dave Letterman. Like, he's acting Dave Letterman.
They have to play this paradigm. Look at Conan. Conan's not a bad dude, but look at his routine. It's just offensive humor. It's not, and I don't think offensive humor can't be funny, but it's not clever offensive humor. It's just offensive humor. And I think
I don't watch him as much because he doesn't resonate as much. I don't think. I like some things about certain people, like Jimmy Kimmel likes to mess with people, and play practical jokes and make fake videos that suddenly become like, you think he basically makes a trend and then destroys the trend. I find that to be a good, basically making fun of the system. I kind of like that. I kind of like poking fun at any of that. Really.
Let me ask, just since we're talking about this, so let's just take Graham Hancock, for example, who
Sure.
I can still, like, if somebody sent me a video of him, I would watch it, but I wouldn't seek it out anymore. And I would also agree with you that
I got his book over there.
There was a period in my life where I thought he was the shit. Like, I really idolized him. I thought Graham Hancock and these guys, like the Ancient Alien guys, were co-opted somewhat by Nat Geo or the public, the pop scientism, but they were actually seekers. Like, because Rupert Sheldrake would be mentioned in these same circles with David Wilcock, Graham Hancock.
Billy Elverton was on the show.
Which show?
Like, he was on Ancient Aliens.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had like a 2-minute part where he he showed his little experiment about how the electricity can make the Grand Canyon type of thing and how it could build up, and then they of course wrapped it into their little narrative and say and alien.
Yeah, so that's a very specific thing that happens a lot, right? I mean,
well, because they're allowed to, because basically anyone will say yes to be on TV, and then they just sign their rights away saying we can do anything with this footage, right? Okay, bye.
Okay, so let's talk about Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan. So I've learned, or I'm learning, how to not just hate on them outright, because they're both different reasons, right? Like, Graham Hancock lured me into the idea of this guy who I think is a great dude who's had all these psychedelic.
You didn't say an ice cream man.
Sorry,
he lured you, and then I thought you were going to say do an ice cream man.
Yeah, Graham Hancock, right?
Yeah.
So he lured me. Same thing with David on Gaia TV, right? With really great stories of historical things that I thought were relevant. And a lot of it is this geometry, it's the stuff that people talk about, like Nassim Haramein and Walter Russell and, the Hutchinson effect. They all kind of tie into the same thing. Anyway, point is, the celebrity idea of Joe Rogan is nothing wrong with him per se, but he has become this metric by which things are measured. Same thing with Vsauce. So Vsauce and Joe Rogan are celebrities, right? They really want to be celebrities. They go out there to become celebrities and to make money ultimately, right? And that's what comes with it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
But I think the fact that they are the yardstick for certain science, to me, seems really wrong, like fundamentally off. And I feel crazy saying it because they do a lot of work in that field. And people could say, what do you mean? Vsauce does all this stuff. And Joe Rogan talks about all the psychedelics. And I'm like, even though they do, what are their actual intentions beyond just being famous? Because with that kind of clout and money, somebody...
Well, he was a stand-up comic, did
Sorry.
martial arts, and had a TV show, and then became a radio host. I'm not sure he really wants to do much else except for talk, listen to his own voice, go, wow, really? Like that, and smoke a lot of weed. That's what I think he wants to do.
Like nothing.
I'm pretty
wrong?
sure that's
nothing wrong with that. But do you hear what I'm saying about how he's?
Oh, I
like
agree.
The yardstick. If you see a Thunderbolts Project video, many of them, especially some of the best ones that relate to strangers, like people who haven't come to Thunderbolts, and they got to one of the videos somehow, they're like, in order to validate you more, you should go on Joe Rogan, or you should talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson, or have you heard of Rupert Sheldrake? And you could take that very innocently, like somebody's like, I know this thing, I'm just relating to you. So there's a lot of, I know this thing, I've heard of this thing. But I would also say that the fact that he is this yardstick is really upsetting to me deep down. I've learned how to just say, okay, fine, that's how it is. But the fact that, like, because he has the numbers and the power, he could literally highlight and make this thing public easily. Like easily, Joe Rogan could change the course of history, and he doesn't. So it's infuriating. It's not only like, I don't want to hate on him for being a celebrity, but he has the power and the awareness, it seems, to actually make a difference, and he actively doesn't. Same thing with Neil deGrasse, same thing with Oprah, same thing with ultimately probably even Stephen Colbert. Like, how much money do you need before you go out there and do a week's worth of research and realize that, like, we're not on the moon, we don't have clean water?
Stephen Colbert
like,
will never have the
stuff.
time to do research again.
He's a brilliant
so I'm
dude,
not worried
though,
about him.
Or Brian May. Brian May adding more to the mathemagician like cult versus like Brian May who's actually cool. Why doesn't he talk about it? Like, they're just, it just seems like it's insane, topsy-turvy world.
I think you mean Brian Cox versus Brian May.
No. Brian May, like from Queen, is an astrophysicist, yes, with like a
Doctor
master's.
Of astrophysics, yes.
And like, he's a cool dude, like clearly tapped in to the music. Why doesn't he talk about electric universe? Like, how
he doesn't know about it.
How buried is it, though? Like,
it's very buried. Like,
talk about it.
Let me give you an example of how difficult it is for me. This is my first big failure that I had, and it's eaten at me for a bit. I helped a friend who was his argument was always, you're never giving credit where credit is due. You should always be citing these things. And I was like, look. You have to listen to who your audience is, and then you have to relate it to them in a way they'll understand. When Dr. Donald Scott went to NASA, he knew he was talking to these people, and he talked in their language. In this particular case, and with respect, the same thing with, I guess, most of these people should probably do. But when it comes to going to deal with this issue up close and personally, my biggest problem, I would think, was actually expressing it. And I thought it was a win-win, but I was mentally setting myself up for a historical argument, bringing in mythology, bringing it up that way, and bringing it into the electric universe. But the gentleman in question, who was my debater, we had 20 minutes or so to get to know each other ahead of time, had filled me with all this information about his historical background. He studied history, blah, 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 blah. So this is, of course, what I was going to focus on. And when he got there, he only talked about quantum physics. And I was like, you're a dink. But that was my first failure. Because at the end, he was like, so you can't tell me that you're wrong about that, you can't prove this. And that I think I can. And I went, yep. Because at the end, I could never argue, because he had basically lined up everything perfectly. And I knew that this was sort of like, I felt now what Robert Schoch and Velikovsky went through. And this was only two people versus me. And I was just basically talking to this guy who's my friend,
right,
who runs No Shitcast. And that's what I was on. And I thought it was good. I put that interview on my YouTube page. You can find it under interviews. And that interview is my big failure. But not because I haven't had good interviews after that, but that was when I realized I can't take this at their word. They want to win the argument. That's all they care about, winning. And it's a really powerful drug. And there are a bunch of us who want the truth.
Okay,
that's a different goal.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because that is part of it, right?
Yes.
I mentioned it last time, or I mentioned it, I think, regularly. So I feel like part of being in a band, or being in an apartment situation, or being in a relationship, or being any number of things at a business, a good coworker, it's so important. It's never about winning on your own. It's about serving the team and also yourself. A Beautiful Mind, I thought, not the best movie, really just shows, that whole Nash economics principle of like doing what's good for the person but also the group is the best way forward. And I thought that was a simplistic way. It's not always the case, but it is a simple way of understanding, not being a bully or not trying to win just for the sake of winning. But if everybody wins, it's sort of better. Like if you win, it's great.
I love that part.
But if you also win, if everybody else wins, then you're likely to like succeed. What it really is saying is that if you actually bank, it doesn't say this, I'm saying it, but if you take Nashian economics to the extreme, it's like playing hard to get to the max. It's like saying push it away and it will come back to you. That's what it really is.
Wow, that is totally truth.
And the more you push it away and the more you don't want it, the more you'll have the opportunity to have it, is sort of what I gather from it. But I have been nothing but, there has been a lot of people, only once that I had to defend myself to the point where I had to go, you and I cannot work together. But besides that one instance, almost everything else has been me. And even then, I'm still supportive of that person. Like when people tell me this person does this, I'm like, good on him. Keep it going, because he's a member of the community and I'm not going to be an asshole about it, really. I want these people to really know that they can trust that you're going to be supportive. I want to support them. Buddy didn't ask me about the geometric view, didn't talk to me about it. He just went ahead and made it. But I told him a long time ago, you could do, like, no problem at all. You want to make a t-shirt that says the electric view? I support you. You want to do this? I support you. So, and I will, because he has a lot of things to say, and he has surprised me with how many times I have sat back and gone, I never thought of it that way before. Let's go back to Rogan and
of course,
and Hancock for a second, because it's rare to get an opportunity where you and I are chatting about this, and I'd like to get to the bottom of it, so to speak. So, or just get your opinion on it. So to me, the reason I dismiss Graham Hancock out of hand at this point, and Joe Rogan immediately, because like anything to do with him right now is part of a plasma bubble of stagnancy. He's insisting on staying stagnant in order to preserve his successful run, which is fine. But for me, it's extremely stagnant. And the way that whole thought process goes, even the 2-minute physics Vsauce crowd, and even the Smarter Everyday video that I just shared, a lot of the comments are just anecdotal comments. They're like, oh, correct, I don't miss your videos, I love you. It's all personality driven. So that's not bad, but to me, that's not science, right? Like, science really is almost void of personality. It's dry, it's information, it's data. But I love that. To me, that's the juiciest part of reality. So
I think we kind of screwed ourselves over when we set up the Egyptian Antiquities Department in Britain. So at that point, we were kind of messed. But
hey, Mary. Hi, nice to see you. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's just the way that when you're talking about, for example, Graham Hancock, you're absolutely right. I have no, like, now I wouldn't go and recommend Fingerprints of the Gods or Footprints of the Gods, whatever it is, sitting over there on my shelf, Fingerprints. So I have it sitting there, but I don't recommend it. But it got me to here, so thank you. And he did put some questions in my head that made me question worldwide cultures. Thank you.
Right, I agree.
Robert Schoch has taken me in a different direction and further, and they didn't want to admit what they were looking at, but he broke their brains and they attacked him for it. Okay, and now stepping from that to the next logical step is seeing charges for what they are and understanding things in this sort of electrical world that we live in, then things change even more. But none of those things become untrue all the way up that line. Those are still important things to me. The searching of ancient cultures, the way that they interacted with their world, what they saw. basically, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean? What is the universe? Those type of questions have never changed, and they're reaching way back. But there are people, like you said, Graham is wanting to be right. He wants to take his
Here,
he wants to basically stay
check
where
his
he's
Twitter.
at.
I'm going to check what Graham Hancock is talking about. I'll tell you where it died for Gaia TV and David Wilcock when I started following them on Twitter and looking at their websites, and I'm like, these guys don't do anything. They know all this shit apparently, but they don't actually actively do anything. They're all waiting for disclosure. Disclosure is really, like, in a way, the same way you're thanking Graham Hancock. I think a lot of us.
I have
to say thank you to Disclosure because Disclosure got me to Electric Universe. The temptation of understanding Disclosure. Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that the government is hiding alien tech or aliens from the public.
I have no real belief in that. No.
But you've seen that.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
You've seen that in the culture.
I'm not against it.
No,
yes,
I'm not.
I'm
not obviously not into that. But I'm just saying, for between. Okay, so I think I gave you the timeline when we first talked, but 97 through 2001, before 9/11 was who did JFK? World. It was JFK and Y2K.
Ooh.
And then it was September 11th
I went through that.
and Iraq. Mm-hmm. And who did that? And then who done
and
it?
all the torture stuff and Abu Ghraib and all that stuff.
And then airplane bank bailout and who done that? And then
that
2012 we're gonna die. Hopefully aliens will save us before 2012.
I kind of laughed about that one, but yeah.
Everyone had their take. Everyone had their take on it.
I'm going to watch 2012 and 2013.
Yeah,
why? Because it would be funny and more.
So we didn't die.
And I like John Cusack, so that's fine.
Exactly. So we didn't die, and then it becomes kind of boring. You're like, oh shit, 10 years have passed since Mars. Anything happened with Mars? 40 years since Apollo. You can't prosecute any of these people who've done all this horrible shit. So what's next? And then, the obvious thing that came up then, which I find very interesting, is the whole so-called, the Fab Earth scenario. And that was very tempting. But within a, so...
I still had...
It was a honeypot. It was a honeypot for people who didn't die and who were disenfranchised like me. And we're like, damn, aliens, I don't think they're coming. Like the Mayans, I don't think we're right. You'll never know who killed JFK. Right? I know it's very simplistic, but I think a lot of people...
I know who killed JFK. Everyone knows who killed JFK.
We all killed JFK.
It was a group effort.
It was all of us. All of us killed JFK. But, yeah. What's up, Tony Salamone? And who else? I know I must have missed somebody, but if I did, hit me up in the chat. So yeah,
Disclosure
Okay, so
Disclosure was
that takes
something
us
that
to
really got to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that takes us to where we are now, where I was going to say, let's see what Graham Hancock is tweeting in 2020,
right.
and whether we should really, buy into this stuff. So, scientists unravel the mysteries of cotton candy planets. Even that is just part of the rhetoric. And then
That's ridiculous.
Why would you write anything like that?
Because they literally did too much Marmalade Skies. I don't know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know what else. What else could you possibly say?
Okay, so Graham Hancock, I'm on his website. I'm just going to read. This is usually what I do, and in my mind, I basically react to these things. So, latest stories from the news desk. Scientists unravel the mysteries of cotton candy planets. Super Puffs may sound like a sweet treat you'd find at the grocery store, but these cotton candy exoplanets are much more interesting. All right, the next one discusses virtual reality experience with ayahuasca. Ancient humans procreated with at least 4 other species. Scientists brought brains back to life 4 hours after death. Okay.
That also wouldn't surprise me.
But I'm just saying, this guy is supposed to be the most woke, connected person Okay, Joe Rogan. This is the first time I've ever looked up his Joe Rogan on purpose. What is he talking about? Let's see. Joe is joined by Ari Shafir to recap their third annual Sober October Challenge. Brian Callen is an actor and stand-up comedian, the fighter and the kid, international wildlife explorer, UFC featherweight. Like, I mean, think about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the fact that Electric Universe stuff, not just in terms of energy, but in terms of human love, understanding, connectivity, space travel, industry, I mean, you name it, the implications, right? How is it completely ignored? Like, completely ignored. It's just like, it's absurd levels of intentional obfuscation, while the Thunderbolts Project has 164,000 followers, right? So maybe, or they can get 40,000. They can get 40,000 views on a video, and they can get like 2,000 likes. That's a fraction of YouTube, but it's not nothing. So how is Joe Rogan has weeks where he doesn't even reference this stuff? And literally every night that I can, as a working person, I spend 3 to 4 hours of my day, maybe 5, 6 of it, thinking about telling people
I would just go and tell him about it.
Everybody knows.
Not just tell him.
He knows exactly.
You sure?
What's up, Meredith and Miguel? And
I'm being perfectly honest. I'm sitting there. You saw me.
Yeah, they slammed. I don't know who it was, but somebody got on Joe Rogan, talked about EU, and the whole time was like, bro, pseudoscience, crackpot. It's just like when they had
what's his different
name.
Then I didn't.
I think that's what I've heard, but what I haven't heard is Joe Rogan talk about Electric Universe for 1 week, which at least it's an entire physics paradigm. Are you kidding me? That's already been validated by our own scientists. What's crazy about this is that it's not hidden in the public. It's hidden by perspective.
It's
actually it's interesting. It's like a crystal. You're looking at it from one side, right? What? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's the only pseudoscience that is completely supported by the IEEE. You don't get that. You don't get the International Electrical Engineers Association to go, yeah, this is real. Why? Because plasma, how it works in the lab? Yeah, it works like that in space. Why? Because science, bitch. That's it. There's no other reason. That to me is the part that blows my mind. And yes, there is some merit to say, well, plasma physics or plasma universe cosmology is not necessarily electric universe. And there is some truth to that, because the electric universe is basically not. There's a gap where this is where you would go, well, this is the extension of that, or if we change one parameter. So basically, it's only like, what was it like for ancient Egypt to exist in a high electrical environment? That's a bit different, but that whole thing changes mythology. And as you can see, where that link to Velikovsky is immediate. So basically, plasma universe plus Velikovsky equals electric universe. Now, I find that to be more or less the simplistic point of view on that. But
I mean, that's what it is a simplistic connection, but the impact is massive. So
well, yeah, because stars not being balls of fusion and little campfires in the
comets
sky,
not being
comets not being ice.
Yeah, not being sublimating snowballs, where they have an image of dusty plasma and they say it's melting ice. It's crazy. It's topsy-turvy world. It's that simple.
It is that simple.
It is that simple. I mean, I know people think oh, they're lying. I'm like, they're not lying. They're distorting the actual data that we really have, which is real. But they're saying it's magnetic ropes. Why is it called magnetic ropes?
Because they don't want to acknowledge charges.
Christian Birkeland, are you kidding? They don't reference. They reference alphane at least they say alphane.
They can see the magnetic ropes, but this is what's important to me, and hopefully everyone here can understand this. This is if you draw nothing else from this conversation, is that the laws of physics that you call the laws of physics that we use to determine what these stars are in the sky, or how far away they are, or how to look at the optics of this telescope that he's using, and the CCD transmitter that is receiving the information and sending it down the wire to us, that puts it on our screen and broadcasts it to the world. All of these laws are all science, and they're all real.
But yeah, let me actually jump in there, because there's a channel called the Astro Imaging Channel that people could say, oh, why do we want to know about, like, why the RGB sensor on a camera picks up light? There are guys who know this shit. It's actually fascinating, the concept of picking up light and transmitting it through a camera so that we can reinterpret it by the brain. You know how advanced that process is? It's so much more advanced than the idea of AI.
I have watched it develop my entire life. Like, literally, we are living right now, you're doing right now, moving this camera around, is my dream world. I live in my own dream world. When I was a kid, I imagined being able to play D&D online and slash my friends with swords, fly spaceships, and to explore the far corners of the world and communicate with everybody in the world at once and look through telescopes at my leisure. I'm living in my own world, and I fully appreciate this dream that we've built. However, it is literally just a start. We are just the ground floor. I mean, these rules that we use to make this monitor and to make your telephone and to make all of this are the same rules that we're using to say, no, the electric universe is real. And that's very important, because the rules don't change. I mean, admittedly, we are finding that there could be some problems with mass and other things like that we were just talking about with comets. But that just means because we haven't left our planet really to do these measurements. No one's gone to Mars and said, okay, let's do some charge challenges and test materials on a different planet. We don't do that.
But they have, though. We have 40 plus missions to Mars, and we have more planned.
Yeah, but we've never tested whether or not the actual properties.
Let's slow it down. Talk about this for a second, because I like this topic. Sure. And actually, let's acknowledge the live stream for a second.
Okay.
What up, chat room? We got deep on this discussion with Neil, but this is like how the cycles go. You start talking slow, and then you get into it. And I don't know. I wanted to talk more about the Hancock-Rogan thing, just as a yardstick. But I also want to talk about. No, it's tough to really unpack one topic at a time. But I tend to kind of sound like I'm hating on him. But it's really because if I had his kind of power, I always think about this like this. I'm like, if I had that kind of clout, I would immediately showcase this information. But then you realize him getting that kind of clout is tied to him not being able to reveal this kind of information.
Well, that might not be necessarily true. See, my thoughts on this are as simple as, for example, I was reading this story, but we got cut off there. But this gentleman named Ben Carr, whom had sent me a message, and it was a very heartfelt message, onto my Facebook, and I'm a relatively public person. I don't hide anything there. So just because I know not to go crazy and know how to hide things after I post them, like, okay, we're done talking about that, delete, whatever. But people don't seem to, they post everything. I don't know why. But anyway, besides that, he posted this lovely thing to me, and I didn't get a chance to get back to it till today, and it was 11 days later. So but he's no longer on Facebook, or his account is gone or something like that. So I posted it into Skype. But that's what I mean. It has to be that difficult for someone like him. How could you communicate directly to Joe Rogan and make sure it actually got to Joe Rogan? And I'm convinced that if I could sit down with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy, that we could have debate and walking through it, unannounced, of course, without prep, to actually go through and put my argument forth regarding the plasma universe and such.
You really believe that? Because I would love to be an idealist. But what do you guys think in the chat room?
I don't think it's ideal.
You think these guys don't research, or they're not on YouTube? I'm sure they all know about.
I'm sure they're not.
Let me. 1 second.
I mean, flat Earth, of
exactly.
course. I mean, you can't,
exactly.
They can't not know that.
I love how you read my mind there. Exactly. If freaking Nat Geo and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Joe Rogan are obsessed with flat Earth, then they can be obsessed with electric universe.
Oh, yeah. But the not talking about it, though, is... Yeah. It bothers me.
Like, it does bother me. Graham Hancock, too, because, like, look, it would be one thing if Graham Hancock wrote books and was, like, encouraging people to be curious. It's a whole other thing to indulge in ancient aliens at this point, which is exhausting.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like, if you can indulge in, like, actual physical aliens, why can't you indulge in a comet, like, that we can see? I mean, that we can literally... I just showed it 2 hours ago from my backyard. I literally showed you this incandescent, glowing fireball planet called Venus. We see it with our naked eye, and people are like, what is that giant glowing star? I'm like, man, that is Venus, and very possibly 1,000 years ago, it was 20, 30 times the size, and it was affecting Earth. And they're like, really? And I'm like, it's that simple. And they're like, wow.
It is.
But I mean, think about what we live in. Look at any of these channels. If you
Remember
brought it
we were
up,
talking about
they would
sumo
say
wrestling?
You're weird. Yeah. Go ahead.
We were talking about sumo wrestling.
Right.
Simple. And going, that's a ritual combat between two giant fat planets, trying to clap each other with their thunderclaps to remove them from the sky, which is the circle, the horizon. Now, there's nothing strange about that when you see them doing it. You know that's what they're doing. That's literally the battle between Saturn and Jupiter. So that, to me, is something you can never ignore. So the idea that and it's so particular too. I mean, these towers leading up from the North Pole, all the imagery of that, the crosses and such. I mean, you can't throw that all away. Now, that kind of imagery lent to me to go, why are we thinking about aliens? I mean, when Hancock just said, oh, well, we mated with 4 different species. Well, if you study hybridization between living like animals, a lot of the things start making odd sense, and it's creepy. Also, if we have a misinterpretation with regards to fossilization, how does fossils work? We would realize that very little animal remains exist after you die in real life. I mean, unless you bury it. Most of the time, if animals get to it, scattered to the 4 winds, unless you're buried under, say, Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm just getting some images up.
I'm totally fine with that, by the way, Renegade. Skyrim is the future of Fallout because, of course, of the N1RN plant from the Brotherhood of Steel, the Prydwen. But let's not dwell. And yes, speaking of vault dwellers, that's, by the way, Skyrim is the talk that we were having about the singing the world into existence. And the Dwemer are the people that lived under the ground in that particular world. And it's very... but they learned how to... Basically, their science was based on tones. It's called tonal architecture and tonal magic. Well, it's not magic, it's engineering, really. Because they just realized that you could sort of play around with it. And that's kind of the same thing we're talking about in a way here. Like, if heat changes the properties of material, does charge change it? And to do that, we'd have to either charge up the material and work at it at a high voltage, or literally go to another planet. Or go, like further away from space than our magnetosphere, which we haven't done yet. So there's no C in shill, by the way.
I'm trying to get these images up, but OBS is acting crap tonight. Let's see. I want to say what's up, Holloway Arts. Awesome. Thanks, Kimmy. I appreciate that. Renegade says...
and Polly, I wouldn't try to actually argue with them in public. Like, it would be a private conversation. See, without the implications of your own ego involved, you can say a lot more things. And to have just, let's say, me, Bill Nye the Science Guy, sitting there with maybe Chris from TakeBackSpace, we're all sitting in a room, we're all passing the J around. Now that conversation would be different than the conversation in front of a camera, don't you think? And that's what I'm saying. I think that we could at least have him question, and that questioning leads to investigation if he's remotely an inquisitive type. If he already puts forth a hammer and fist, then he's already heard, and then he's already made up his mind before he's even started, and there you are. So what's the point?
My question is, does no one do research anymore?
I know.
Like, I understand that, like, you would go and have a conversation, and honestly, I would. I'm not a fighter.
Well, not an argument one. No, I mean a genuine one where you
look. I like to win. Yeah. Honestly, I like to win. And working with people. I want
everyone to win
even with difficult
like
people.
Everyone understanding wins.
I know what. Why don't you say what you want to say, and I'll say what I don't think either of us are getting hurt. Go ahead. What did you last say?
Oh, I was just agreeing with what you said with regards to the beautiful mind, dude. Right. If everyone learns, then everyone wins. That's all I meant.
If everybody learns, everybody wins.
We move forward, is what I'm saying. I get to learn, at least if nothing else, I'll learn his point of view and why.
That is. I think that's an extension. I think my point maybe, in addition to that, would be just like at the very base level, like winning involves, losing. In a way, it involves winning. It's necessitative action reaction, not causality necessarily. But because that the whole philosophical realm of causality makes things a little bit muddy. But I think that
I have no love for Sophia.
I don't know the reference necessarily. I'm missing it right now.
Philosophy.
Sophia.
Philo, love. Violet, right. Sophia. Love
gotcha,
Sophia.
Gotcha. Thank you. Right. So I was saying that. Man, I lost my thought because I want to show this image.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. If you remember what I was saying, you can tell me. I just looked at the screen and I got distracted by like all other people's thoughts and trying to get the images right. What was I saying?
Well, whether or not we we were going on the truth of Neil deGrasse Tyson and of course the hiding of Joe Rogan.
Does no one do research? Is what I was saying.
No one does research.
Yeah. You would go and discuss issues with them and try and convince them. So would I. I trust that they're not bad. One sec. I trust that they're not bad dudes. Trying to make a buck. However, I would say with all this time that's passed, like I've known about EU for 5 years, but I'm like, that's not my thing. I'm not supposed to do this in a way. Like, yeah, now I know that I'm supposed to do this, but in a weird way, like science wasn't my game. Like I like playing music and doing other shit. And now I love this because I'm like, no, it is my responsibility. Science is completely, if I want to move forward with science, if I want science to move forward, I have to do it. Other people, I can't wait for other people to do it. I can't wait for agencies to do it. What?
That's a good point of view.
Yeah. In a way, literally, it kind of relates to having agency versus waiting for agencies, Anyway. I love the wordplay, but I just want to show the brain and Antarctica and Orion all at the same time, if I can. But I don't know why it's being difficult. So, Graham Hancock pushing people to ancient aliens, I don't think is so good. Joe Rogan not doing research and highlighting at least Wall Thornhill, or even, imagine Joe Rogan had like... Stephen Crothers on. That would be a hell of a show. But I don't know. I think like it might be too much exposition.
Stephen Crothers with another actual mathematician to debate him.
Yeah.
Would be better because they can actually talk their language. Joe would be best served by a storyteller who could tell a tale about Velikovsky and the change of the reason that history went astray or science went astray somewhere in the last century, literally. And although it hasn't affected us with regards to our terrestrial advantages, such as, making LCD screens and stuff like that. It has affected our concepts of what we can do and our methods of getting to outer space and leaving the planet and those type of.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue to something talking about the Artemis and future moon missions. And
the other way, I guess, downwards inside the planet too, because we have a certain mental image of what the planet must be because of what our weight must be, our mass. But if mass is variable, then depending on charge, then none of that has to be true, and there could be other reasons for it. And that alone changes the entire internal structure and understanding of the function of our planet. And of course, our weather, even all of that, volcanism, all of that changes. And that becomes, we would carry that on to other planets. And if we carried that on to other planets, then we would see the ridiculousness of some of these things, like the volcano on Io, for example.
Well, to me, that's why I think where I ended up with this is that, well, for a while I didn't know how to articulate it, but the fact that they use fuel and rockets is as simple as I can put it, right? Somebody would probably tell me, oh, you don't understand escape velocity or orbital mechanics or jet propulsion or aerodynamics. They have to use fuel, and this is how we're going to leave Earth, right? And even if I were one of those proponents that's like, hell yeah, let's get the F off of Earth, I would also say, like, really, is this the way with the hundreds of millions of tons of, or whatever, gallons of fuel that risks massive climate issues, right?
Wildlife. Not to mention kabooms, the earth-shattering kabooms.
Right. So this is like a terrible function of the space program. However, at the same time, and it probably is like one of the sketchier things to talk about, is like how any old company that has enough money can fire satellites and get like a whole bunch of them circling Earth. That's a ton
so much so that they became a huge problem.
Yeah, and it's just starting.
Yes.
So I feel like space is so important beyond like standing up for NASA or tearing down, or even tearing down.
We could use the railgun approach to get things into space and wouldn't even have to use an ounce of fuel. We just use electricity.
Talk about that a bit more.
Well, we can shoot them into space. If you had 100 kilometers of a straight beam that literally is a ramp leading to the sky, but also goes underground, is almost a perfectly straight line, and you literally coat it with like a railgun, you could shoot things into space, like aluminum material into space using railguns, accelerate it to literally 25 Mach and just watch it go into orbit. Now you're asking the right question. The last guy who did it, they killed him. But he was doing it for Iraq, and the Israelis didn't want to. He's a Canadian, actually, and he developed a way to shoot, like with actual fire guns, like gunpowder, shoot telescopes or shoot satellites into space, and they line it up on the side of a mountain to actually get it to work. Yeah. So, but it's no change to change that fuel into magnets, considering neodymium magnets, and the fact that we literally already built a 17-kilometer circle of it. So it's the same thing as just taking that and winding it straight, and then just pointing it towards space, and pow, there you go. And you can control, depending on how long it is, you can control your acceleration. If you only want people to accelerate at exactly 4 Gs, you can accelerate them at 4 Gs across until finally they're literally no longer accelerating. They'd be weightless as soon as they left the cannon. But at that point, and then you could just say, and you're in space. You're in orbit. Because as long as you calculate the thrust right, you're going to be there.
So isn't the obvious question, even though it's probably the most dangerous question?
I know that sounds crazy, but
no,
it is
the dangerous question is, isn't it being done because it's way cheaper and more efficient anyway? Of course. So then there's an active space program and now a space force, and people still don't realize the relevance of getting to the moon, or like looking up.
Technically, if you built one of those big enough, you could shoot something to the moon. There would be no problem. You just have to calculate it exactly.
Why is going to the moon relevant? 3 top reasons.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, it's fine. Water definitely has water, ice. It has remnants of what possibly could have been earlier primitive life or different type of life. And it's also the closest thing. Like, consider that we have 40 plus missions to Mars. That is 50 plus million miles away. The moon and the Earth are about 250,000 kilometers away. 250,000 miles away, or 324,000 kilometers. 384, sorry. It's just amazing. Sorry?
The moon's 237, isn't it? Never mind.
Let me check. I mean, there's an apogee and perigee, so it changes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking about the door in the, what was that movie, The Shining?
238.
237. 238. Okay.
2389.
That must
239.
Be
is it room 239? Is
237.
237.
No. Well, maybe it's changed.
Well, the moon does, supposed to be shrinking, but it means they say it's moving away, getting smaller and smaller. Who knows? I don't really know. I also think that, the entire discussion about distance in space, for example. Let's switch topic to like fringe circles or whatever, electric universe is considered, or conspiracy theory, or theory in general, and talk about like why, like I feel stagnant when it comes to Thunderbolts Project. I love the content, and obviously they're massively influential. However, like, why don't they have full discussion panels like every day? It's that important.
That's why
every single day.
Pretty much doing what we're doing.
No, I know. I know the obvious answer to that. We've probably said it 100 times, but I just mean, like, how can we get the interest up, really? I'm just asking.
The world, like even me right now, I must accept that I am already obsolete. Like, there is, even as I grow, because of my age, but the people who are doing this, I mean, Velikovsky's obviously dead. Halton Arp has passed away, and so most of the intellectuals who founded all of this are passed away, and now, of course, many of them are now hitting 80 some odd years old. And so the next group of individuals would be people like us. But we're trying to bring it into just literally the YouTube world, which is already 13 years old or something like that. So we're already so far behind on that. And but they were in the magazine world, if you know what I mean. Like, that's where they grew up. I mean, the 1990s ideas were new to them, where you go, no, we go on Ancient Aliens. This is brand new, and the power of the intellectual establishments have faded as time has gone on. So, because of these other modes of communication. So the next step, like when someone said we need to go and attack the universities with, like, I said, no, we go to the people. Ignore the universities; they'll never believe you. Build your own institutions that have nothing to do with them, and just replace them, because clearly they don't want. I mean, that's how we did it before. Technical schools, replaced theological schools because the technical people could build stuff when they were done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that was France in the 1200s type of stuff, like when things started changing. It's weird in a way, because it's like we became cognizant and then we sort of fell back again, and that fear of what might have caused that, the the Dark Ages, as it were. That's very. I mean, it had to be more, and the more we learn about that period of time from 535 up until 900, seemed to be a very tumultuous time for especially Europe, getting smoked with comets and such. So I'm finding it to stop dating yourself, the Electro. I do. I don't have anyone to date.
Exactly.
Sorry.
The double entendre is real.
I know.
All right, let's do. You good going a little bit longer?
Oh, sure, a little bit, yeah. Why not?
Yeah. No, we're coming up on
10 minutes,
2
sure.
hours. And,
yeah.
Yeah, let's do some questions from the chat.
Sure.
Questions from the chat. Questions from the chat. All right. This is an awesome conversation. It's come to a healthy rest point in the measure. Let's see what's going on chat room. Thanks everybody for all the kind likes and shares and comments. Kimmy is on a rant about the hidden hand of the Illuminati, the bankers, Meredith, and to think people are burning their leaves. I guess I missed the context of all that.
Oh, I think he means because you were smoking something. And he could hear it.
Regarding sound, can you measure silence? Yeah, let's do it.
What are we measuring? Hey,
measuring silence.
Shockwave just came in.
All right, I guess I can extrapolate a thought from what Kimmy is saying. So Kimmy has been talking about how they, the proverbial they, is trying to destroy the other, us. And she says their plan...
I've watched Game of Thrones. I know about this.
Same thing with Game of Thrones. I saw some of those episodes.
Sorry,
I was like, it's so... actually great. This is a great segue. What I was going to say is, like, science has reached the level in movies where you start yelling at the screen because the heroes do some dumb shit. Excuse my language, right? Like, I think we've hit that saturation point in Hollywood where people are so wise to movies and plots, and everybody's a writer and everybody's a critic, that you're dissecting every piece of content that you see, especially Hollywood movies.
Yep.
So people are like, don't do that. Oh, why did he do that? And, people do hate watch. But ultimately, I think there's a threshold, too, where people
You've just defined horror movies, really.
Yeah, that's why people, like, I see Look, I randomly, watch...
Everyone go watch Cabin in the Woods.
Exactly.
We're
right?
the guys that's trying to survive.
Trying to subvert tropes has become a trope, in a way. You know what I mean? It's like a fractal.
In a way, I'd rather take that, though, wouldn't you?
Well, my argument about that is such that even that will hit a threshold, which is why, like...
But sometimes it's done, and you don't even know it. Like I said, that movie, Real Genius, if you go watch the whole thing, it's a beautiful movie, but no one's a trope. I mean, because it never happened. It's like everyone's an original character, and I found that to be a very good thing.
I would argue that they tried to do that, but they ultimately lampshaded, is what they call it. Like, lampshading is something where you do the thing, but you also say that you're doing the thing. Now, they did it very cleverly, and the end
did
scene...
you watch it? Are we talking about the same movie? Because if we're talking about it, that's cool.
Yeah, like they ultimately had the sexy girls in it, and they ultimately had the truth or dare scene. Even though they were making fun of having that in the movie, they still did it, and that's why it was compelling to a lot of people.
What was the truth or dare scene?
Or just like the fact that they end up like pushing the limits of each other in this small confined space with two very good, they're all very good looking people ultimately. Even the hippie is like effable.
We're not talking the same movie, are we?
Cabin in the Woods with the...
Oh, God, no, we're not talking about...
Oh, you're talking about some horrible shit, not the recent
No,
thing?
No, that's a good movie. Don't get me wrong.
I thought that's what you were talking about because it's pretty culty.
No, I love that movie. I really do.
Sorry.
I was actually talking about the movie Real Genius from 1985. When they do happen, a movie that does not have... that has everything that you said, but are not... anti-caricatures, is that the word? I don't know. But like you said, trying not to do something and you try not to so hard that you have to hang a lantern on it.
Oh, actually, I would actually say that's the same thing about what I said the other day, when you brought up True Genius. Like doing Real Genius, doing the thing, to show that the thing is bad. That is sort of lampshading, and while it works,
that is what this isn't. That's why I wanted to emphasize that. Like, I didn't know this. Someone else had critiqued. Like, I loved this movie. Okay, always loved the movie because it was witty, and the way that the humor was done, and the way that it wasn't insulting and stuff like that. Like, for example, like he goes, Kent has his name on his license plate. My mother does the same thing with my underwear. Your mother puts license plates in your underwear? How do you sit? Now, that alone was a joke, but I love that. Like, it was so well delivered, and it was just funny as heck. So here I am watching this movie. I think it's great, but someone had pointed out that this was directed by this lady, and then she specifically was trying not to do that. Now, look what they did compared to other things of that genre, of that era, all the things around it. How this person was trying not to do that, but at the same time successfully didn't make it a caricature of itself, like a mockery, like you were pointing out. By trying so hard not to, you end up pointing out that you tried so hard not to. Like that scene in Endgame where all the women fight all at the same time. Like, why the hell did that happen? And why did you ignore the girl on the flying horse? Because I would take her to go first. Except for Captain Marvel, she can go first.
Well, because you show truth and then you package it the way you want to sell it. So they showed.
That's what I mean.
So the truth is, women
should. That's why you haven't heard of the movie, because it's so unpackaged.
Let's unpackage this other package.
Sure, fair enough. I love that movie. I'm just telling you.
I hear you. Let's do Electric View all about that.
Why movie. I feel like a stupidly smart person. That's why.
Not that I'm really trying to talk about Flat Earth, but Tony Salamone says,
let's do it.
TBS, as far as flat earthward go, are all stars and planets flat? Isn't a sphere a natural shape? Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
The argument that surface tension is one thing, but the other argument is that it seems to be, it's also something electricity does naturally. It makes spheres. It's just what it does.
Let me quickly sketch it too, because I know I'm not trying to be one of those people that just mocks people. Flat Earth is very seductive and compelling, and the people who sell it are also massively compelling. However, you're looking at an object that's in space right now that is spherical, or at least hemispherical, and even that defies Flat Earth, 1. 2, you have hexagonal structures on the moon that you can see change angle from night to night, even from hour to hour, if you can see the tilt called the libration. And that's the simplest way to prove
where we started.
Sorry?
I was just saying I can see from when we started, Tycho's over more than it was.
Yeah. It rotates, right?
So yeah, and you can see the sun has changed its angle too. You can see more of the crater.
So basically, any type of telescope and watching the moon for 6 months or less will disprove flat Earth for you personally. It did for me. But the second is that water not curving is disproven by bubble formation instantly. So the concept is that things try and form a circle or a sphere, and they grow outwards from the center of every... This is how I believe the universe works. At the tiniest quantum particle, the meson or the graviton or the reverse quark or anything like that, at the smallest particle, it's a sphere. Or it's a three-dimensional object that we refer to as a sphere or a circle. And then that expands outwards, and other things are happening next to it. Other spheres are doing the same sort of thing. The rate at which they expand is maybe related to charge, I believe. And then as they pack, they push against each other and create walls. And this is where you get hexagonal formation. And the reason they do that is the universe is extremely efficient, and it is built on this intrinsic geometry, the hyperboloid, hourglass shape, and the torus. At every dot, at every point, and at every point on this object, there's another point that's doing the exact same thing. And that's why you have hexagons and spheres, and you don't have there's zero flatness in the universe at all. The universe is always slightly curved. Always. And you can see it. So if you want to believe in it, that's your belief. But if you want to disbelieve in it and move on to some science, get a telescope, or watch this channel, because if it were real, it would be something I would be very interested in. But now when you think about it, it's like really limiting. And it's also... I said this once before, but I really feel it. Because flat Earth kind of... when conspiracies point fingers at other conspiracies, then you know conspiracies can't be right. When there's that pettiness of my conspiracy is more better than yours, Electric Universe definitely kind of shits on the mainstream. Or Thunderbolts, you could say, they talk a lot about scientists baffled and scientists puzzled, but they're always presenting actual data. With every video, there's actual science. Don Scott's stuff, Stephen Cruther's papers. I mean, there's always a bit of data in there that just is not there.
The story also hasn't changed.
Yeah, their story is consistent with what we see in space. It's what we see in space is consistent with the Electric Universe. Like 5 years, 700 videos. I'm bragging, 700 videos of space. I'm certain this structure looks the way it does. It can't unlook like this. This is the dipolar nature of the universe. Ken Wheeler thinks so. Eric Dollard knows so. Tesla knows so. Really smart, cool people understand this structure that's like an apple. So it's a torus, you know. Before you even imagine flat, you should imagine a donut or an hourglass. And the fact that flat Earth has become a thing that Nat Geo talks about and that the powers that be actually like is a sign of it's not being right. The fact that the government has embraced it and that YouTube has allowed it is part of why I think it's wrong.
Well, I can't speak to that part. I can speak to the nature of why the form, like why it, in the ancient terms, why it occurred, why people thought they were on a flat object, because of course they had rings, and they thought, in many cases, they thought they lived in a bowl because of those rings, and they thought that was the edge of the bowl, and they were sort of like on a dome, and then there was an elephant or turtle, and then there was a stream or flowers coming up from that. And this, of course, leads to all of the Asgardian ideas and everything like that of the world tree and all that. But there was basically all of those ideas, either a gray mount up near the North Pole. That's important. And that seems to indicate a sizable amount of vaporization of materials to the point where people could see it around the globe as a sort of like a back or a hump. That's way out into space. And then, of course, then you have this thing sticking at the top of it that's writhing like a tree with its roots reaching to the sky, upside down in some cases. And it had layers sometimes, as we saw, when it goes into its caterpillar form. You have discs and different layers. And these layers, of course, would be reaching into the sky. They would be this idea of flat planes, and that we ourselves were on Midgard, one of these flat planes, but Asgard being up there. Now, is this really what this is? This is them trying to understand where they stood, looking at what they're looking at. They had no way of knowing at all any of this. They couldn't even measure it correctly. I mean, at the very beginning, you'd have to triangulate where this thing was on the planet.
Well,
and then
although to be fair, music of the spheres and the idea of the cosmos being bubbles is also equally old. Like flat Earth was a thing, but so were people's interpretations of electricity. I would venture to say that it's these things existed, and one faction. It's factions, right? But right now, which faction is the most unsupported faction? Electric Universe. It means it seems to be the most right. All these other factions, like the government, loves ufology. They market movies side by side with making people
that
believe
doesn't
in
surprise
aliens.
me. And I find that to be something that bothers me as well, because the push of it seems to be related to the Age of Aquarius ideas, because a lot of people have this sort of, and I know this is correct, that they have these secret society sort of ideas, and they want to bring them into fruition because they think that they're real. I mean, just listening to George Bush go on about why I have to go there because it's the land of Magog, and the French prime minister was like, "Are you fucking on drugs?" I'm sorry for dropping the F-bomb there, but I mean, my God, like, he couldn't believe what he was hearing, because why are you believing this? Like, who told you this? Why are you, and like, why are you revealing it to me?
Right.
And so there was obviously just that notion alone makes you question, okay, well, there are some people that have that, and Masons have these ideas, and other people have sort of and even some evangelical Christians have end of the world ideas, rapture ideas. So I don't really know how they all amalgamate into one cohesion, but clearly sometimes, in some ways, they are trying to sort of push for a new religion by the next age. They want to have this Age of Aquarius, this new age religion come out, and obviously aliens is their selling point. Because that's my thoughts anyway.
That's great.
I mean, it's shallow.
Let's talk about it.
Really,
well, Kimmy is outspoken about this, and we may as well just do the.
It doesn't mean that everyone, by the way, is
questions. No, because I rarely like to talk about flat Earth, because that's giving it actual energy. That's giving it power, and it has no power over me except the fact that it is one more thing.
But making books that have real science cost $5,000 per book to teach you how to be an engineer.
That's okay. That's
being a joke. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to know that. They would prefer you believe in aliens and you believe the world is flat, and that things with space ray guns are in the sky that could kill you at any moment is what they prefer you to be. They don't want you to be educated. And that's those people I'm kind of scared about. But that's not the majority. But there are some that seem to have that plan.
Why? There are a couple of parts of this, right? So the whole flat Earth thing is also mired in dragging in other conspiracies. And I think partly it's done for that reason, which is to sully questioning the moon landing, or to sully other types of actual valid questions. I really think so. I think ufology used to seem like, oh, there are some people actually out there telling the truth, trying to get the truth out there. Stephen Greer and Graham Hancock and Lloyd Pye and Wilcock and all those guys, right? Linda Moulton Howe. Like, think about it. Linda Moulton Howe is a cool person, but what she talks about is like crazy. I mean, what these people are talking about, the fact that they spend so much time trying to talk to people about this stuff, but never spending time learning as well. I think it's so important to do both, right? You can go out there. It's the same thing with Joe Rogan. Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm wrong.
I became an electrical engineer because of the Electric Universe. I was an electrical technician, so I had a grasp of it. But then, so it was obvious to me that this was leading in some direction. But to be sure, I had to go and actually take an actual course. And then I had to explain it to another engineer, so that they went, oh my God, I see the formula that you just replace these two variables and suddenly, yeah, that's all you have to do. It's like, oh my God. That kind of stuff is the revelations that you have when you begin to realize that this is what Donald Scott was talking about. He's not making it up when a doctor of electrical engineering has a point to make,
Sorry, Shockwave wants to join, I think.
It's beeping.
That's what, yeah, there's a bit of, sorry about the static, y'all. I feel like there's some static going on. If it's me, I'm sorry.
It might be me. If it is, sorry.
But I wanted to talk quickly just about Kimmy's point. This reaction to somebody saying the Earth is not flat is that I'll show you mentality. That, I think I mentioned it last time, but I love this idea of like we don't really discuss this psychology of like people who tell you to repent so that they can
the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
If you don't repent, then so on and so forth. But it really, the attitude, that kind of conveyance, what do you really imagine? Do you imagine that when all hellfire is unleashed on Earth, that you'll turn around and find that person that you don't even know on YouTube, on Twitter, and you'll go, ha, I told you that the Earth was going to come to an end, sucka. And look, it's funny.
Kind of waiting for that for QAnon, but that's about it.
But
that's about the only one. But only because I actually have some friends. But that's all I mean. I have actual personal friends involved in that.
I don't know. Yeah, that's just like.
No. I didn't mean it in a mean way or some sort of crazy conspiracy. But he's always going nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and I'm like, dude. And so that's kind of fun, but that's more of a friendly rivalry as opposed to an actual, like, we boo burn in hell. Oh, God is with me.
But even that, like that's it's how people talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas and ritual. That's just ritual. Like to me, I've just gotten to a place where I think that type of stuff is like it works against. It's against the team.
It works if it's private.
No, but I mean, even doing it takes away from the possibility of doing something else. It's again not whether something is bad or good, but it's about getting shit done. And if you want to get shit done, you actually have to focus on doing that thing. You can't say, "Oh, I want to get things done, but I don't know if I'm going to do anything about it to get things done." There's a lot of that, and in fact.
I understand that feeling. Trust me.
Yeah, but it's all. But people who say that and do that are also living. They've made they have a body. They breathe. They think. They purchase. But they also abdicate the responsibility of their choices that they make. Right? They say that this doesn't matter. Oh, Shockwave's busy. Okay. So I want to talk about one quick thing. So Kimmy is saying, I told you so mentality. And I'm saying, why is that what's important? The reason I want to not talk about flat Earth or that I even addressed it tonight is simply because like we're looking at a curved moon. Like flat Earth should not even be a thing. The fact that it's even a thing to me is like topsy-turvy land. It's just as crazy as NASA like throwing away the Apollo telemetry data, and there's nothing wrong.
This also could be that we just give crazy bored people access to the internet. That could be all we've done.
That's judgy. I mean, like somebody could say.
No, I mean in general. Like if you look at the amount of people who believe certain things, like 25% of the people believe that the moon landing was faked, or
I don't. I know, but you could really have a conversation about the moon missions. I know people say you can't,
of course,
you're immediately crazy, but you could definitely have a conversation about the feasibility of it. And let's talk a little bit of. Let's see if people in the chat first, and second, I have to.
Oh no! Well, yeah, they deserve.
I'm really, really freaking thirsty. So give me 2 seconds. Let's take a musical interlude.
Interlude.
A tiny interlude.
I'll listen to Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. It'll be cool.
copyright strike.
Well, I'm glad it's coming to my ears and not going through this. But that's what I'm listening to right now. Go get your water.
All right. Yo. You back. Yeah, back.
Me too.
Crackle, crackle. Crackle and pop. What's up, chat room? Everybody's a gatekeeper for NASA, of course. I'm just kidding. All right.
Yep. We were just
let's debate the moon landing.
Yeah, we were just making sure with our masters at NASA whether or not we're allowed to talk about it. So,
okay.
We called the CIA and everything.
This is the long and short of it. 2020. There are 10,000 photos from the Apollo missions, a lot of which look really legit. So, as somebody who really looked into the moon landing conspiracy, I have to admit that the data looks really like a camera left Earth. It looks like that.
Have you looked at NVIDIA's? That was pretty convincing.
Oh, the simulation? Are you being sarcastic? I can't tell.
Sometimes I'm not being sarcastic. NVIDIA's new graphics engine.
Yeah, but they simulated that. Yeah.
The moon landing, the moon location.
You mean it's a good simulation?
No. The fact that you couldn't tell the difference between their simulation and the moon.
Right.
And the reason you couldn't, and this is very important, is what they did is they took every single material that was supposed to be there, the lighting, everything, the albedo of every particle in the frame,
mm-hmm.
and allowed the shadows to cast themselves based on that. And it looked the same. Now, that is alone very interesting. If you're trying to simulate something, and NVIDIA tried to, and of course, like you're asking why, if there's only one light source, are you getting light on this side of the moon? Well, it's coming from the back.
I don't think I've ever been into the light thing.
No, it's only because it was NVIDIA, and that's why I thought it was very like the people who do graphics cards. Here, I'll show it to you.
NVIDIA, I know. Yeah. I'm just saying.
It was a really good semi.
Are you saying they needed 3 light sources or what?
No?
What are you saying?
I'm saying that when they reproduced
I'm being dense.
they needed to do nothing. They basically took the materials that were being used, the exact type of paint.
Oh, and you're saying
materials of the planet.
It proved that the images were correct.
It's pretty convincing because you couldn't tell the difference between them and the thing using only, like, if you removed Buzz Aldrin, like, they were realizing they had a problem because it didn't look the same, and they realized, oh, we didn't simulate the guy who's taking the picture. His suit is reflecting all over because it's bright white, and once they put him into the frame and simulated him, boom, everything looked identical, and they were like, okay, yeah, I'm seeing it. So that kind of stuff is very convincing to someone who loves the science of light. So
so my question becomes the conditions by which the film was, I guess, imprinted upon, or the fact that taking photos on the surface of the moon seems to be this really crazy thing, so I basically it's a deep presentation, but really, I want to say that the images look real. So I think that you can get to the moon. But the other part...
I think they look real as well, yes.
Yeah. So the other part that seems to me that you can really have a debate about is, like, for me, the lights never did a thing. I feel like you can simulate a situation with one distant light source and the proper type of setup and never mess up. So I feel like all the images, even if they were faked in a studio, would have been lit correctly. It's not rocket science, so to speak. It's very simple to light them correctly. So
the limitations of 1960s technology.
I don't believe in that. I think 60s was super advanced. If you go back,
you
know better than I, but I would bet that they had all this sort of tech.
Well, there's actually a filmmaker that you can see that talks about this exact thing. But let's not.
Well, one quick one would be like high-speed footage. They definitely had the ability to film high-speed footage.
But only so much at a time, no more than about 90 seconds.
Well, for me, there are a couple of things like that seem like really interesting rabbit holes, but those are also...
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. No big deal.
No. In a good way. Just like if you wanted to, I would get rid of, like, the flag waving. I would get rid of the light, the angles of light or many light sources. I would get rid of... There's so many questions about the Apollo conspiracy. What I'm trying to say is that the conspiracy itself is mired in a whole bunch of questions that are snappy answers to stupid questions, even from a perspective of questioning it, is what I'm saying. So, for example...
yes. Like flat Earth. Like, this could be solved with the sextant, guys. Like, really.
Just bubbles. Just go to the sink, put soap and water, and you'll see water curve. Done. It's that simple. Like, everyone's like, have you seen the curve? There's no curve. I'm like,
well, water... it has to be...
No, but bubbles basically prove flat Earth wrong immediately. Like, there's not even any question. It's the natural form of nature. Bubble theory immediately is like a physical, and also looking at the moon.
I thought you were talking about the Coriolis effect. Never mind.
No, the Coriolis effect is actually very powerful to disprove the flat Earth, but it's actually so difficult to actually comprehend mathematically. It's always a one-upsmanship. You don't get it. The blah 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 sniper. It always becomes about the guy.
To be perfectly fair, you have to have a perfectly still body of water. Like, and that's what they never tell you. Like,
the point is, water can curve, and it does all the time. We're
How do you think the Pacific Ocean works?
Yeah. Well, no, but that's the whole thing about flat Earth. Flat Earth doesn't think the oceans are curved. And I'm saying that water in your sink creates immediate curvature because of the geometry of nature is spherical and then hexagonal and platonic. And it's not flat. It's as simple as going to your sink or pouring a coffee pour over. People think that the oceans don't curve. That's the whole point about flat Earth. Anyway, sorry, Neil. Let's talk about Apollo.
Don't worry about it.
So Apollo...
I mean, you've got to remember, like, from my point of view, Chris Hadfield's still amazing, right?
Is he, though?
Like, we yeah.
Is he, though?
Because he is to Canadians.
No, he knows that the Earth is round, but he spends his time going after flat Earthers instead of, like, talking about science.
Well, I wouldn't think he would go after flat earthers. He probably did one or two things on flat earthers, but I don't think he...
Oh, no, but think about it. Like, I don't follow this on purpose, but it shows up as soon as I log into TakeBackSpace, all this sort of stuff pops up, and I avoid most of it. But like, you can still see what the topic of the day is. The topic of the day, when Elon Musk launches a rocket, is that the footage is all CGI. You know, there are these hot, but it's. You know why flat Earth seems so weird is because it's just like politics. It's just like the media. It claims to be not antisocial, but anti-establishment.
Maybe to
but
people
it's completely
who have never
establishment.
left their own
What?
house.
No,
that has
but
to be
that's
the only
insulting.
thing I could
think about how you.
I don't want to be rude, but I mean, you travel around the world, you realize the stars move.
I know, but you see that level of frustration is saying that you somehow are better than somebody who doesn't know that. You know what I mean? I don't mean to insinuate, but that's actually what it is. Really, that's why science on YouTube is screwed. If you listen to if you read the chat rooms or the comments, it's this feud.
Like I learned constellations when I was a kid, but you don't know them,
to argue just for the sake of this type of thing, because it's a very specific psychological discussion that doesn't happen. It usually ends up in somebody walking away or getting drunk or saying "fuck off," but it doesn't ever
no.
Hold on.
I agree with you there.
Let me finish here. Let me just finish.
Okay.
It is more about your opinion is valid and you're right because I want to validate you. However, immediately pointing out that somebody doesn't agree with you scientifically about the Earth's shape, let's say, even though it's an absurd concept, doesn't automatically make it right to belittle that person. And it's very nuanced. Even though the first thing that people want to do who are intellectual or pseudo-intellectual or think they know everything or know shit. I'm not implying you in any way.
Don't worry about it.
I'm just saying.
I don't even if you were.
People in Joe Rogan's comments, let's say, who love this idea of talking about a grand topic and then being self-deprecating, or to deprecate the person talking about it, or to crack a joke at the end of a very complicated thought, or to not attempt to say a foreign person's name correctly, or to instantly say, I'm not good at math, before doing the math. It's this weird self-deprecating mentality. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, like, conspiracy thought, conspiracies exist all over the place. As soon as a company makes as soon as you incorporate a business, you're conspiring to sell something. So I feel like getting back to bullying flat earthers has become a common trope. So if you, and I'm going to go into this for a second because I rarely get an opportunity to talk about it, and stop me at any point. But if you go to a channel like, even not Thunderbolts necessarily, but a lot of other somewhat sciencey channels, you'll get these people, and this is like a real thing, not bots. There are a lot of bots, but a lot of real people who anticipate the arrival of flat tards, let's say, or flatters. And I'm not trying to stand up for flat earthers because I believe in flat earth. I want to stand up for flat earthers because they're people. And so are people who believe that Neil deGrasse Tyson's a great dude. And I think that's where science has gone awry.
Let's not go that far.
No, but I want to say that science has gone to this place of stagnancy because of the interactions between all these different factions of people that believe certain things. So in a way, I'm not trying to judge you for being like, come on, man, do you want to get outside of your troglodytean mindset? You'll see that it's not flat. It's
I don't think we were having that debate, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But to instantly jump down, but we don't know those people. Now, does the reaction itself seem like a natural thing? Yes, it does. Like it's almost aggravating. Like when I see people like Vsauce having 7 million views on a video while he's making these quick edits and making weird faces at people, it drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely batshit. I'm like, man, fuck that. That shouldn't be science. Science is not this quick edit, weird face, clickbaity thing. It should be like Halton Arp. It should be like Wal Thornhill, slow-paced, like a grandpa telling you ageless stories about the universe, not this quick-paced,
A lecture is a lecture is a lecture. I understand.
You know what I'm saying? There's a difference. It makes you feel really empowered. People like Vsauce makes me feel extremely disempowered. And I'm also a consumer, right? So point is, defending people and the ability to have a conversation about science, whether or not you don't consider flat Earth science. Some people do, and I think there's got to be a bridge. And I'm just pointing it out. I don't know the answer. I just know that there are flat earthers who are like grandpas and kids and brothers and sisters, and they're not all stupid and they're not all bad people. But flat Earth is a very simple concept to disprove to oneself, I think. Okay, I'm done. Thanks. Mary, have a great night. Thank you.
This was actually pretty fun.
Whoa. The moon looks really good. I know I've been kind of ignoring the moon, but I was just thinking and talking. Let's see what's going on in the chat.
I would have to say that one of the things that I very much enjoy or one of the things I think that some of this has to do with is the simulation culture. And I mean that because of people like me who wanted it because I want to play video games. And we go play this wonderful video game and we love the look of CGI and we put it into all of our movies and stuff. But the issue became later that people who have only seen things on screens, who have never actually seen something actually happen, like have you ever played with dry ice? Have you ever played with liquid nitrogen? Have you ever seen what happens when a bullet goes through, like a brick, and have you watched it in slow motion? Have you...
Yeah, I would argue all that stuff is relevant, like super slow-mo, Vsauce, 2-minute science.
No, I mean actually doing it. Well, physically doing it yourself with your own hands.
I love that, but people can be empathic, right? Like not a lot of people are going to get a telescope, but they can experience, let's say this show, for example.
Oh, that is a given. That's a different
and gain an empathic style, like at least 60-70% of the actual experience. So I would say that like I agree with you, but like that's why I wanted to just like not completely again trash people like Joe Rogan or 2-Minute Science or these cats because they're not bad, but they're also not science in a weird way,
I'm a much bigger friend of James Burke. Yeah, like I want to hear stuff from him, and this is actually one of the reasons why when we talk about things like flat Earth or whatever, one of the things that pop up is, well, when he's talking, number one, he's just explaining it to you like a normal human being to another normal human being, which has a valid quality that I appreciate. But he'll also grab, say, a stick, and then he'll draw the surface of the Earth. And it goes, now, if you use a sextant, just like this, an astrolabe, this is a Portuguese quadrant, and he shows you blah, 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 blah. And he goes, and then you see this plumb, this weight. Well, this tells you the angle and blah, blah, blah. And then you see it, like see exactly how it works with your own, like at least if something else, or at least see a cloud chamber work, and you actually see like ions flying off of a radioactive rock. Like these are all like amazing things that are not, I mean, when you see a laser with their own two eyes burning a hole in something, it changes you because you realize that's like 2,000 watts of just burning a hole right in that rock.
I would say like, and this is a little bit directed towards Kimmy, of this inability to change her position or his position, but more about like the flat Earth notion of you don't get it. It's like this versus. I know that it sounds like my thing is better than your thing, but it's not, like, or whatever, you can take it or leave it. But if you listen to Wal Thornhill or Halton Arp or Velikovsky talk, they don't care about what you think. They really care about the information that they're talking about. And it's completely different. If you listen to flat Earth people talk, it's all about it's all about like convincing you that the person is right. Ha, I told you so. It's all about that. And that is not science. I mean, yes, it's like a thing. It's a sport. It's like a YouTube sport.
You're right. It's not
science. You can't learn and take away anything from that that is actually actionable. So that's why I feel like flat Earth doesn't end up anywhere. So what? It's like disclosure. You think the government that has all the benefits...
All kids should play with magnets is what I'm saying.
Well...
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Like, no, chemtrails can be real, and they are, because there's actual data to support it. That's it. But it doesn't mean the Earth is flat. There's a weird thing with flat Earth that like has to incorporate all the conspiracies and say because this, then this. And it's a quick way to get people hooked on a drug by saying you need this, therefore this. You need this, therefore this. So flat Earth catapults itself on a whole bunch of other conspiracies that are actually real. So yes, of course there's geoengineering. Just look up YouTube geoengineering and
used to be a
go
big
10 pages beyond the conspiracy, and you'll see that there are conventions for geoengineering. Like, there are full laws, and there's real data behind geoengineering. And because it's called chemtrails, look, they call Electric Universe crackpot, and it's insane. Like, these are like very, very smart individuals who work on Thunderbolts Project concepts. Eugene Bagachow's very smart guy. Walt Thornhill, really smart. Don Scott, like Michael Claridge. These cats are freaking smart people, like compelling, smart people. Like when
I would not relate what they're saying if I did not understand intrinsically what they're saying. And I will, I mean, if they correct me, that's fine. But they don't.
Well, Kimmy says at Kimmy, yeah, chemtrails depopulation. So think about it. I'm not trying to say like I support it, but the universe does really well. It's 8 billion plus. If chemtrails are a way of the cosmic consciousness eradicating a bunch of the population to keep everything in check, like Thanos just as a natural phenomenon, think about it like that. The cosmic consciousness could be, why wouldn't Earth itself make chemtrails manifest as airplanes? We think they're so different because it's metal, right? And it's companies like Boeing, and it's airplanes, and it's fuel. But it's the Earth. We're inside Earth. We're in the sun. In fact, we're inside the soul of the sun. That's really what it is. We're inside the influence of much larger consciousnesses that are making.
We are very close to the sun. Yes.
And those objects are making decisions as well as us. So I think like things like chemtrails, I've started to think like, yes, they do exist, and it might be depopulating and making people dumber. It could be making people smarter. It could be nothing, but it could be just fear tactics where they just spray random shit, and just by stressing people out that there are chemtrails, you create death. Think about it like that. Like, it's very subtle. Maybe further than that, it just doesn't mean that because one thing, therefore flat Earth. And I think flat Earth really rides that kind of wave. Same thing with like a lot of conspiracies, but ufology is all over the place because ufology is a real thing, but it's not from other planets. Like, it's a real thing. Like, everything that happens in ufology is basically real, but it's real physics, and it's not.
Well, like I told you, I've held a piece of that spacecraft in my hand, so.
What?
I've held a piece of the Roswell spacecraft in my hand, yeah.
Elaborate, please.
Well, I met a guy named Chuck Wade, and he said he went back to the Roswell site as somebody who knew where they were digging the night that it happened in 1947 or 48, whatever it was. And then they went back and they dug up pieces that were not carted away at the time. And he asked me what I thought of it, and I started asking him a few questions. He goes, "What would you try to do to understand it?" And I go, "Well, if this is supposed to be 1947 technology, then..." And he goes, "Well, no, it's alien technology." I go, "Well, is it?" He goes, "There's only four things that it could possibly be." And then I went through the four things, which basically covered, it's real, it's fake, and you faked it. It was faked in 47, it was faked in 81, or it's faked right now. So,
wait,
like,
elaborate too. Is it like, sorry, I'm missing the point of the story.
Well, what I was trying to say is that the pieces that he was asking me to investigate, and I offered my services to him, but I was trying to point out that I'm I'm not going to believe anything, but what I'm looking at right here is something that I've never seen before. However, being someone who has seen machines from since the dawn of time, um, like my dad had an engine from 1880, I think. So, if you have that kind of action or that kind of understanding, you realize you're going to be impressed with the solutions that man has come up with for modern problems. Like I could be holding a piece of a carburetor for all I knew.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I hear that. Let's
But
hit
I
the
wasn't
let's hit
being.
up the
But
chat room. Let's hit up the
yeah,
chat room here real quick. What's up, V Smart? How's it going? Thank you. I appreciate that. Says the show's been super entertaining. I'm going for a little bit longer here. And thank you, Neil, for hanging out for so long. And Kimmy, all is chill. Just talking.
it's been great.
Who else? Oh, Pexito says something about Electric Universe. Says not the real deal. So I just want to find that. Yeah. Says Electric Universe is not the real deal, I guess. Plasma fields precedes electricity. I'm not sure what that exactly means. Sorry
Neither
about the
am I.
static. I feel like it's staticky. But yeah, I'm not sure how to address that. But really, Electric Universe is not everything, but it's a good starting place, at least. And the idea really just mainly that the space in between people and stars and planets is not empty. That's really the main takeaway here.
I would give you that. Also, that plasma tends to organize itself into cells and separate voltages. That event is a modern misinterpretation of things like shock fronts. Like they think that there's a shock front in front of the Earth and that the magnetosphere is being hit by the solar wind, as if these things are forces. But obviously that can't be, because the wind would pass right between these molecules. There would be no effect. But what's actually happening is it's no different than as if I went to electrical engineering school and say, here's the distance between these two plates. How do I calculate the distance between this voltage, and where will it form? And you'll get a number, and that will be the number where that magnetosphere boundary is. It's not that hard. So that's the type of electrical knowledge that I support. Now, I'm also willing to speculate, since I have almost nothing to lose in the whole thing by speculating. But I try not to leave these tenets. And some people, like yourself, Chris, you have you see what this advantage can do for you, and what it has changed in your perceptions, and what it can do for the world. Look at some of these craters and how beautiful they are, and to know that they were shocked onto the planet's surface is amazing.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. In addition, that they look like all these other things, all the documentaries that people seem to like, all the stuff on Gaia, or the eye-opening New Agey documentaries tend to try and leave you with a ascension thing. Tess and I were chatting about. Tess brought that up, but that idea of something better, the grass is greener mentality, right? Like what you have now is good, but if you meditate, then you'll get to somewhere even better, light body or Buddha mind or any one of these ideas. But really the simple answer is that one, it's easier than you can imagine to attain that. And the simple answer that is really like that people don't share, because I think in a way maybe it's due to the geometry. Not maybe, it's likely due to the geometry, but this idea of like ignorance and then revelation. Ignorance and revelation is maybe a plasma function, every time I think about things now, you can see where if you apply this understanding, or at least for me, I'm not trying to imply that Neil agrees with 100% of what I'm saying, or any of you, but the geometry that I draw, the torus and the hyperboloid and the onion shells, makes me understand that death is necessary for life in the most simple way imaginable. And then for the same reason that, like, once you understand what that looks like, you're like, oh, life is one side of this, and the other side of the coin is death. So it gives you much better perspective and placement in the world. Does it make death easier? No, but it makes life easier, because death is going to be an experience, and then life is going to be an experience, and then death is going to be an experience. And
actually, when you think about it, one of the things I like is to think that all of human civilization being built up, if it was brought forth by these events that we saw in the sky, basically everything that we are and that everything that we create is literally is and always will be fan fiction of that. We are literally screaming our stories back to each other over and over again in a panic, and it's just getting more chaotic and louder, like it's filamenting and fracturing from the one story that we kept all the way true until, almost till the 1880s practically. I mean, houses were built that still had these spheres around and these globes and crosses, and everything was still built right into the buildings. That's kind of disappeared now, modern architecture being what it is. But to know that they were holding that true as best they could, even though they didn't know what it meant till then. And then we started telling stories, and then everything just went to, I mean, look what we've kind of done. I mean, here we are talking to these people here about a story, about a story, about a story.
Excuse me. It's
kind of interesting. We're just sort of petering down.
Let me address American Life Video. Says, going back to what I said about the popularity of the shows like Rogan versus Truth channels, I'm viewing it wrong. You're viewing it wrong. Blaming people like Rogan is the wrong way of looking at it. What you should be contemplating is why the general population chooses these shows over truth channels. The general pop is so far away from comprehending any truth that they need to follow the path of lies. It's what they have been taught to do their entire lives. It's the fault of the people, not the show hosts. Okay, there's so much in that I don't disagree with necessarily, but I think I can answer that. And fundamentally, I think it's the geometry. I feel like 90% counter space to hold 10% in place exists as a paradigm within consciousness and culture. So you're going to have a whole bunch of people that exist in a population or a culture, like little nodes. If you consider people or souls as tiny little suns or spots, having awareness, or an apple, let's say, then this will be, you need the what is it, like the page and the words. So the page is like 90% like space, and then the words take up a fraction of the page. However, without the page, you can't read the words. That's the analogy. So I think in culture, you'll get a whole bunch of people who don't get something, and then a bunch of people who do get something. And that's like on a tree where you have, like, what do you think the vector of the tree is? Like, why does a tree grow upwards, and then at some point it grows downwards, or it grows outwards? These vectors, these leadership points, the function of the growth of this superstructure, this structure over time, creates these concepts. So point is, I lament situations, but I understand the geometry, I think, of the situation. So Joe Rogan has to exist in order for me to understand the opposite of what he's preaching. That's actually, I think, how I live my life. Every time I see something that's extremely popular, I realize that what I'm looking for is the opposite of that. Maybe that's just the person I am, and I think people call people like that, like, just like you're elitist or you're an edgelord or whatever. There's the whole meme culture of like pointing fingers at one another saying, I label you that, versus like where I'm at, where I don't really care much about that, because I'm way more interested in like, how did dinosaurs exist? Like, people can say anything they want about flat earth or hollow earth or whatever, any of these ideas, but is anyone talking about how dinosaurs may have existed? Like the physics behind it? No. They're talking about the nostalgia of dinosaurs, or like the race car stats of dinosaurs. Have you ever seen that, Neil? Like the way dinosaur stuff is done, or prehistoric man, is like the analysis of the hunt. And they do the eyeball, the line, and the hunt. It's all about the strategic dominance, as opposed to like cats and dogs that literally mess around and just chill on the couch all day long, and like birds and cats interacting, and dogs and seals interacting, and dolphins and whales interacting. You never see, not you never see, but you see far fewer videos of that, and more videos like the popular stuff about dominance. And the idea of dominance is sold by the dominant people who exist because they have to exist. So I'm going off on a deep tangent here, but I'm saying that Electric Universe ultimately proves that the hidden hand and the dumbest people and the smartest people and the richest person and the weirdest person all have to exist to fulfill this cosmic orchestra of the universe. So I don't blame or judge anything from a deep perspective anymore. But of course, I'm built within a plasma bubble that contains all this judgment and these immediate reactions to things that I'm trying to undo or modify. And so, wait, let's see. So getting back to, I should be contemplating why the general population chooses these shows. So I think there was a point in the 70s or 80s where populations did choose shows because there weren't a lot of shows. So people were more discerning, and artists had to really sing or perform at really high levels in order to be popular. And so then when the record labels realized that, like, at some point that would run out, they had to lower the bar. So all of science and music and media like got lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered till now you can produce things with almost no talent, and that's the super popular, excuse my pops, super popular, rich, successful image. But it's not the good image. That's what's interesting, is like equating like anyway, point is you can impose content now. We live in an age where the universe itself, trying to weed out the really I don't know, the leadership points of the branch of the filament, is trying to figure out who can discern between things. Like it's a path of least resistance decision-making machine. So it's trying to figure out within a population of 8 billion which people can lead to create the vector, to exist along the Birkeland vector. And I think that's why you have more and more and more people who are less and less and less and less aware, and you have a smaller group, you know, you have a larger and larger group, but very small in relation to the rest, who do actually see through the veil, so to speak, and can do all these magical, it's all the shows refer to it. Think about it, like Heroes, Avengers, it's all about the regular Joe rising up with superpowers. Why do you think the government sets up these movies? You think it's because they sit and discuss that stuff? Yes, that's exactly why. They sit and discuss that stuff, and they impose it on people so that people actually rise up and become those super Avengers. It's actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. Neil? I've just gone on like a long, long journey.
No, it's quite all right. I just wanted to listen to that.
Let's see what...
Did I screw that up?
No, Tony Salamone, take care. But the general population doesn't think like you or us. They're not supposed to. The more you want to be awake, I think it's like this, between plasma shells, there's gradient fall off. And as you move towards the shell or away from the shell, we have these experiences that we feel as depressions and uprises. And it's like rarefractions and compressions in the wavefront. And I think if it manifests as bubbles and with fluid dynamics, it likely manifests with language and culture and interactions between humans. So I feel like all celebrities right now that I'm talking about, that I sound like I'm lamenting the situation or blaming Joe Rogan, he's both to blame and not to blame. Like Graham Hancock, like I'm both to blame and not to blame. I used to present videos and say UFOs and kind of hope for a few, for maybe 3 months. In the beginning, I was like, oh, let me hype it up a little bit and get people hyped on this UFO train. And then I quickly was like, I don't want to do that. I know it's like against the grain. I know that all moon channels like indulge in UFOs and like all the cool one, like Bill Bryson that I based my channel on really, like was all about UFOs. And I was all about UFOs. But I was like, if I do that, then and I'm wrong, and there are no UFOs, then I've really done a disservice to people. And I don't do anything with my channel. I'm not about being popular. I'm not about making money, clearly, right? But it's really just about ethics. What?
No, fair enough.
Sure, I want people to see my content and share my music, but like, I don't advertise. I don't post on Facebook. I do everything contrary to making a successful YouTube channel, except making super quality content pretty regularly. But besides that, like, I do that on purpose. I don't do it because I don't know how. I do it because like this whole part of space and thinking about conspiracies is mired in screw you, I'm better than you, I know more than you, that kind of one-upsmanship type of thing.
Sorry, I'm still blown away that I'm staring at the same thing that Cleopatra stared at. So,
And what's crazy is even like the old school scopes that they had, Cleopatra probably had like an 8-inch like mirror telescope. They must have been seeing the moon with no pollution. Can you imagine? Anyway,
well, we had
yeah.
Well, I live in Canada, so whatever, yeah.
Cleopatra. You and Cleopatra.
No, I just meant about the moon, about seeing it, no pollution. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't immediately go away just because you cross the border. Don't worry.
But no, I forgot now what I was saying. But more so, like, I think it's important to be able to consider conspiracy. So we didn't finish up about the moon. So let's wrap up on the moon, and everybody throw some comments if you want about moon landings or whatnot. I know the Kubrick stuff, but let's talk about it from a sense of let's say it's not about the photos, and it's not about the flag, and it's not about Stanley Kubrick. Let's say it's about radiation poisoning, radiation shielding. That's one really deep avenue of like how do they do that? That's crazy. Like it's miraculous. I think that's one layer deeper than your typical Apollo conspiracy thing. The other one would be it's a really long time since we've been there. And even astronauts in the program are like, huh? Why haven't we been back? And then,
statistically speaking.
Let me quickly finish. The third one would be, why does the government spend so much time like do so much professing of the thing and claiming that the public has something to do with the funding when we have nothing to do with the funding? Like nothing to do with NASA funding, never have, don't think ever will. So, but there is an implied notion that we collectively don't give NASA the will or the funding. But it's never been that, and it never will be that. So those are three things where it's like, people are like when you ask them, why haven't we been back? They're like, there's no will. I'm like, whose will? Or like, there's no money. I'm like, but we don't really decide that. So, okay. Throw me some... some moon defense or non-defense.
Well, first things first, they clearly were trying to make ICBMs. So that's something that this whole thing was clearly, I wouldn't say a cover for, but I would say that they are related. You learn something in one, you're going to apply it in the other. The other one later on, we have to acknowledge, is the space shuttle's role was to, and of the Canada arm, was to exactly what you would think it was for. It was for grabbing satellites out of space and working on them and putting things on them so that you could, spy on them and then release them back into space and learn all the stuff that the Russian comm system has or whatever. So that's what they were doing, and then eventually that became less and less necessary as we could start lasering them into space. But so that's a piggyback ride together. The question is, could they possibly do it? Well, don't even worry about faking it. Could they possibly get there? Learning what they have to do to the International Space Station and learning what they would have to do to basically prototype shuttles or prototype capsules, because each one of these was individual prototype capsules. There wasn't a production run of space capsules. Where the people survived, could they possibly survive that long together without killing each other? That's another one. Because imagine if I was me, you, and another guy decide to get into just a station wagon and sit there for a week. Who's dead? At the end of that,
yeah, and it sort of hinges on
not even in a vacuum
on numerology, but like the fact that it was 12 men and 6 flags, and I think it's interesting. Like, the government is so smart.
Well, the names of the space shuttles, did you know that one?
Oh, yeah. We could go down a whole list of like how perfectly aligned it is code-wise and Kubrick's stuff. Of course, a lot of people, I'm sure, like, you're not talking about any number of things. But I'm just trying to talk about, like, sorry?
No, I was saying the challenge of our age is the discovery, or the most challenging endeavor or something like that. There's a sentence that is in a Mason sentence that has all of those words in it, all of the names of the space shuttles on it, in that one sentence. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
All other challengers will be destroyed or something.
It's here's one that's always driven me crazy about JFK, where even contextually it doesn't make sense. He's like, we choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And no one says, what the fuck was he talking about? What other things? No one's ever done that.
Well, yeah, but that's...
What is he talking? I checked the context. He's not referring to anything. He's like, and do the other things. He's a president. Like, who wrote that script? We choose to go to the moon and do some other random shit. Literally, he does a yada yada.
No, he says, and do the other thing. Yeah.
What's the other thing?
The other thing is
He's playing the pronoun.
No. But it's an expression.
It's a strange. Yeah.
But it's only weird to us. It is.
It's of a time.
It's perfectly normal in a transatlantic 1930s and 40s. It's a little bit weird.
Do the other thing
from 1961.
Oh, do the other thing, like the like the different, like, yeah, is that it? Like
do whatever
the rebellious thing. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
We do this and we do the other thing as well. We're going to do it. We're going to keep doing it, like as much as we want. It's an expression. Okay, it's an expression. Yeah.
Fair. Hey.
But it's a weirder one, and then you're right. It would be something that you'd like when you go read a book from the 1940s. You'll be like, I can understand every word, but why are they using these big words, or why are they saying things like they're saying? And well, things are getting lost just in the last 70 years. So, I mean, no one talks like FDR. Like,
no, but I mean, within that whole speech, if you listen to the whole thing, it just sounds like somebody. It just sounds like two people.
We're gonna do this.
It's like, hey man, I need to go to the supermarket, and that other thing.
Right. Well, he's actually bringing it more down, because this is the first president to actually have television, and his charisma was palpable. So one of the things that they wanted to do is try to make him sound less Ivy League. So one of the things they actually were doing in some of his work, which when they actually had like plans when they were doing these things, was actually say stuff like, we're going to do this and we're going to do the other thing, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Like we're gonna do this, like just like we won World War II. It's sort of like that sort of expression.
No, but it's gonna keep going. Come on,
I know it's weird.
It's a weird throwaway line in one of the most.
I'll show you
It's one of the most important, like, or not important, but it's pointed to as like such a big line of his. But to me, it's one of the most awkward phrases I've heard, especially like what did he think he was? He doesn't even know. Like he sounds like he would like what he's referring to. You know, he's like, we choose to go to the moon, and that other thing.
Actually, according to
in
this
decade. Sorry, it does sound weird.
It does sound weird, but here it is. It was do the other things, not the other thing, it's plural, and it's clear when you read the context. Apparently, it has to do with
lay the learns on me, brother. Sorry, if I judged it too harshly, I apologize.
Oh, I actually just went to Quora. And it said, we set sail to the new seas because there is new knowledge to be gained, new rights to be won. We must be one for the progress of all people. The space science, nuclear science, all technology has no conscience of its own. Whether it becomes a force of good or ill depends upon man. And only the United States occupies a position of preeminence that we help decide this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a terrifying new theater of war.
Right.
Space Force.
Yeah, so, actually, thank you for reading that, because exactly what the fuck is he talking about? Excuse my language. What is when 1962 talking about, or whatever, 63 talking about like a war front on the moon? Why?
No, he says the next sentence, the next paragraph clears it up. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in our space as of yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peace cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this goal? And why? And they may ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because it's easy, because it's hard.
I still think it's clunky.
Yeah, well, I didn't write the damn thing.
I'm saying, like, it's such a peak sentence in his life. Anyway.
And I was totally wrong. So there you go.
I'm not going to belabor it to negativity, but I think American Life Videos is right. He's referring to the football rivalry, but it's still clunky. Let's see.
It could be, yeah.
So Kennedy. Okay, fine. Let's go. Let's talk about the.
I like to Google. Sorry.
So radiation is too deep of a topic. I think that alone is like a 3-hour debate. And if anybody likes radiation...
Oh, I got to go anyway. I can't save another few hours, so...
No. I just was saying. But I was going to say... I don't know. Let's finish it up here. I'm actually pooped. I think it is ready to be cooked. Put a fork in it. Chat room. Let me know what you think. If you want us to answer anything else. Or... yeah. It's super nice out, though. Gosh.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful flat moon.
Oh, please, Neil.
Sorry, no, Ellie Wynn just said that. I was just laughing with them.
Ellie Wynn, please don't stoke the fire. Don't stoke the fire.
Oh, is that poop? Can I disturb that?
Wait. Let's see. Yes. Why was I talking about? Yeah, that was a non sequitur. But anyway, point is, a couple of things about... let's take an opportunity to check the description of this video. I know it's very uncommon to check descriptions anymore. It's passé. But I linked to all the cool Electric University channels.
It's only because you can't read descriptions in the on your phone.
Can you not? That's the first thing I try and do. I guess everybody's on their phone.
I can't read a phone without glasses. I am farsighted slightly, so I need reading glasses now. So. No big deal.
No big deal.
Hey, I don't need them when I'm driving on a highway in the middle of the day. That's all I care about.
Yeah, V Smart says play some outro music. All right, so let's play up some music. Neil, thanks so much, man.
Man, it was great. I loved it here.
It was freaking awesome. It was a long time coming, but we did it. So everybody...
Just a nice, relaxing talk.
Yeah.
And we get to watch Beetlejuice blow up later, I guess. So.
Oh, so You want to see Beetlejuice?
Sure. Might as well turn that to there while you put the music on. Everyone, welcome to Beetlejuice. Oh, we can't say it another time, though.
No, it's right out of view. But
sorry. I thought we were going to say it again, because if we say it again, he'll jump through the screen.
Beetlegoys.
Thank you.
As a kid, I never understood. I'm like, Beetlegoys? What's Beetlegoys?
Oh man, I still call him Jalapenos, so don't worry about it.
Love Michael Keaton. But I don't know. I think like the idea of a variable star. I don't think. I mean, anyway, I think you made.
Well, don't worry. I have all those comments. We'll talk about it Sunday.
Exactly. Somebody said it, but if it does go supernova or whatever, it'll unify mankind. And do the other things.
I wish it this, but it will definitely change color if nothing else. So that's good.
I think it's natural. That's the shape of it. We didn't really talk about sonoluminescence at all, but
no, we didn't. But we'll have to make a point of that.
Suffice to say, it looks like the bubbles, and if you look up bubble universe, you can see Buddy Dougherty's stuff. You can see
William Almond Sosa, also the guy who did that video on my channel there, he's big on that too. So
it's all happening in its tiny little way. I just want to finish up that last point. So I just remembered because if you want great things, you're going to have to sacrifice, and that's really what it's about. Is understanding the sacrifice of life, which is dying or believing in a cause or doing something, is the payment for existing. And media kind of wants to say that it's really not that. It's like it's all these other things. It's having a family and it's the mundanities of life. But the supersedent understanding is that no, we're like a version of Earth, and Earth is a version of a planet, and a planet is in the solar system. Like either we're in space or not, right? I think that's the important takeaway from TakeBackSpace, is that I just want to remind people, like, hey, like we're in space, we are space, we're inside the sun's influence. Like weather's works in very amazing ways, and geology looks like your hands, looks like honeycombs, looks like molecules, looks like crystals. You are important. All right, music time.
Later, friends.
Hang Neil for a little bit, and we'll wrap it up.
Cool.
Still need to find a song, though. What kind of song do I play? All right, this one. All right, y'all. Got a little bit of M42 to take us out.
Nice.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks, V-Smart. Take Back Wrench, hilarious. Kimmy, Polly B, Renegade, 24/7. It's a little lower. Let's see, who else? Mississippi Case, thank you. And Kimmy, K-I-M-I, thank you. OPX, Piehe. Gotta learn how to say that. I know there were a bunch of people here. Genghis Khan and Tony Salamoni and Polly B. I think that's it. I can't scroll much more. But thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Tonight was a long one, but super fun. 3:30. Back maybe tomorrow or the day after. Weather dependent. But have a great rest of your night. Enjoy Catch. And hit up Neil on the Electric View. I'll catch y'all this weekend probably. Alright. Good night.
Later.
Imaginary man.